Hi, I'm the Midnight Storyteller, here to keep you company through the quiet hours. Many of you listen to these stories to fall asleep, and I'm honored to guide you there. And before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep the stories alive. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it on your side of the night? Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. They told me not to leave the room, not in a threatening way, more like someone warning you not to touch a hot stove. Just that calm, deadpan HR tone. Under no circumstances are you to exit monitoring bay 3 during your shift. Log all visual anomalies, do not speculate, do not attempt contact. I signed. I needed the paycheck. The warehouse sat just beyond 8 Mile, in a patch of land that looked bulldozed, then forgotten. No signage. One flickering LED panel at the gate. Logistics, supposedly. Inside, everything was wrong. The hall to Bay 3 had no windows, no clocks. I passed a woman in a neon vest who never looked up. Her eyes just followed me, like she didn't blink. The door sealed behind me with a mechanical thud. 10 screens, one desk, a single mic. No phone, no exits, no camera on me. I sat. For a while it was boring. Rows of boxes, conveyor belts, forklifts resting under sodium lights. Each camera had a label. Zone A, Storage 9C, West Vault, Loading South, all silent. My job was to watch, log, sleep in the daytime, return at 7 sharp, simple. Until the third night. At 1:12 a.m., Zone A flickered. It was one frame, maybe less. I saw a man walking through the aisle between pallets. His badge number looked real. But the report listed that entire wing as sealed for fumigation. I rewound. Nothing, just shelves. I logged it under level 1 visual. That's what they called the minor ones. I hit submit. A minute later, the anomaly report vanished from my screen. No email, no confirmation. The logbook auto-refreshed, no report submitted. I didn't panic, just rubbed my eyes. Maybe I screwed it up. The coffee was old. But then the next night, Storage 9C stuttered. One moment it was empty, then it showed a man pacing slowly in circles. Same uniform, same badge. He stared directly into the camera. His jaw moved like he was talking, but there was no sound feed. I leaned closer. I recognized his face. Joseph Banning. Senior sysop from a different life, before the whistleblowing, before the lawsuits, before I became the guy no one returned calls to. He died in 2017, car accident. I went to the funeral, I hit the panic key. A red report urgent form opened. I filled it fast, pressed send. This time I screenshotted it before it vanished. Same result. No anomalies recorded. And then the next day, HR called. Not to ask, to remind. We appreciate your commitment to protocol, the voice said. Woman, flat tone. Please remember to refrain from speculative language. Anomalies are strictly optical. Camera latency is not uncommon. I asked if someone accessed my logs. She paused. Mr. Cole, no submissions were received. Silence. I stared at the screenshot on my phone. I didn't send it to anyone. I should have. By week 2 it got worse. The screen labeled Loading South began showing loops. At 2:16 a.m., I'd watch a man walk from the left, adjust his gloves, and vanish behind a pillar. Exactly 30 seconds later, it'd play again. Same gesture, same blink, same turn. The timestamp didn't change. I checked the source feed. It listed as live. I backed the footage up 4 minutes. The same loop repeated 11 times. On the 12th, the man turned his head and waved at me. I flinched so hard I knocked my coffee over. The footage continued like nothing happened. Except now, he smiled. Teeth too white, too many of them. I didn't report it. What was the point? I just wrote it in a notebook I'd started keeping under the desk, lined paper. No digital trail. I didn't sleep that day. My neighbor pounded on the wall at noon, said I'd been screaming. I didn't remember. By the end of week 3, I noticed changes on the screens. New angles, higher resolution, slightly off perspectives, like the cameras had moved. Then one night, Zone A showed me, sitting at the desk, staring at the screens, except I was smiling, not a normal smile, something carved, too wide, too still. My hand twitched, but the screen me didn't move. It just kept staring and smiling. I unplugged the monitor. Black. I waited. 10 minutes. Plugged it back in. The camera now showed crates. No people, no desk, like the room never existed. I wrote nothing. I just stared at the red exit door across the hall when I left. But I didn't touch it. I followed instructions, always. By week 4, the screen stopped showing logistics at all. Now I saw things I couldn't explain. A figure dragging its legs across an oil-slick corridor, a child's voice echoing through a vault labeled lockout. A man in my father's clothes humming a song my mother used to sing, mouth open but no sound. I pressed the mic. Testing feed integrity, I lied. The system beeped. Test received. Continue monitoring. That night I didn't go home. I stayed in the chair until morning. My knees locked. My bladder ached. I needed to see if anything came for me. Nothing did. But the next shift, my ID didn't scan. I knocked. The woman from the vest opened the door from inside. Same blank face. Same unblinking stare. I'm on the schedule, I said. She nodded once. The system recognizes you now. What the hell did that mean? Inside, the screens were different. Now they showed my apartment. Not a feed, not a security cam. Like someone had recreated it perfectly. Same furniture, same stains on the carpet. Only there was no me. Just the room, gently pulsing. Like it was breathing. I tried to exit. The door wouldn't open. The mic clicked on by itself. Anomaly detected. Please remain seated. I backed away. The chair pulled itself upright. My hands trembled. In the screen showing the hallway, I saw someone approaching the monitoring bay door, wearing my face. It wasn't me. I screamed, but no sound came. Then the screen blinked. I was in the chair again, smiling. Everything reset. That was 5 nights ago, or 5 years. I don't know anymore. The screens still flicker. They show more now. Memories I know aren't mine. A wedding I never attended. A child calling me dad, a fire, and sometimes they go dark. But in the dark I hear things. Breathing, typing, soft chewing like something is hungry but patient. Today the mic crackled. Welcome to your first shift, Mr. Kwan. I looked up. The screen showed a new face. Nervous, young, sitting down in monitoring bay 3. He looks confused. I try to scream through the feed, but he can't hear me. He's me, and I'm gone. The end. You can't just forget your first dissection. They say it like a joke, like a rite of passage. First cut, first cadaver. You remember the weight of the shears, the strange scent, part preservative, part meat. Mine was different. I remembered her face. They told me it wasn't possible, that cadavers come from donors anonymized and randomized. But I knew that cheekbone, the dimple. Her name was Emily Cross. She was 12 when she disappeared. I was the last person to see her. I stared at the body longer than I should have, frozen scalpels in hand. Dr. Wendt tapped my shoulder. Remsen, you're up. I nodded. Moved on autopilot. The cut was perfect, automatic, like I'd done it before. I hadn't. Not like this. The Advanced Anatomical Research Institute was private, remote, and silent as a monastery. No windows in the dissection bays, just cool tile, surgical lights, and constant filtered air. I'd taken the job for the solitude. No ERs, no family consults, no trauma kids, just clean science, until the second cadaver. I rolled back the shroud and saw an abdominal scar I knew too well, a precise C-shaped incision tucked under the ribs. My father had that scar. Gallbladder removal, 1997. I saw it every summer by the lake, but his name wasn't on the tag. It said, Subject R2214. I asked the logistics team if we could trace the donor lineage. They laughed, said the system randomizes everything. No identifiers. Still, I opened his chest. His heart was missing. No surgical note explaining why. I wrote it down. Next morning, my report read, heart intact, no anomalies. I opened my file. It was locked, modified. My credentials still logged. I didn't remember editing it, but my initials were there. I started keeping a physical notebook, handwritten, pocket-sized. I never let it leave my coat. I logged each anomaly, each face, each twitch of my own hands that felt involuntary. By week 3, I began waking up mid-procedure. No memory of starting. Scalpels laid out, gloves on, incisions already made. Once I blinked, and the body was already dissected to the iliac crest. My note said I'd begun at 9 a.m. The clock read 9:04. 4 minutes. No blood, no error, just open, like someone else had done it. My hands kept shaking, but only outside the room. Inside, they were precise, calm, like they didn't belong to me. I asked for a transfer, twice. First one was misrouted. Second was denied with a note. Performance exceeds expectation. Essential to program. Program. They never called it a hospital. Never a lab. Always the program. Week 4, I found the drawer. Behind Bay 7, under a panel I'd never seen opened, a grid of Polaroids, dozens, maybe more, all of me, dissecting, smiling, staring. Some photos showed bodies I've never seen. Others were missing key features, no faces, no hands. One was just skin laid out like a coat. Then I found it. One Polaroid. Myself splayed open, chest cavity pried wide, my face grinning above it, thumbs up. I vomited into the sink. When I looked back, the drawer was gone. I ran my fingers over the wall where it had been, seamless. Next day, Dr. Wendt said nothing, just handed me a new case. Special subject, he said. Use protocol variant D. The shroud was already off. It was me, not a look-alike, not a twin. Me. Every scar, every mole, even the chipped tooth I'd never fixed. I reached out. My hand moved without me, scalpel drawn, cut along the sternum. I screamed, no sound. Everyone else worked quietly around me, like it was normal. When I stood to leave, no one stopped me. I made it to the admin wing, demanded to resign. The secretary smiled. Exit interview scheduled. Room 3C. Inside, the man behind the desk looked up. Dr. Remsen, he said, extending his hand. I'm Dr. Ava Remsen. I froze. He wore my face, voice, even my birthmark under the ear. Have a seat, he said. I backed away. The door was gone. The lights buzzed louder. He slid a folder toward me. Next protocol, Identity Reconstitution Phase 2. You'll be excellent in training. No, I whispered. I'm not. He opened the folder. It was filled with diagrams of me, labeled, dissected, annotated, words like threshold breach and loop stability. One phrase repeated across all pages. You are the procedure. I ran. Somehow the halls let me through. I don't remember reaching the parking lot, just cold air and headlights. I drove for hours, maybe days. I don't sleep, not really. When I blink, I see lights, stainless steel. My own hands slicing open someone who looks too familiar. Sometimes I hear my own voice narrating steps, even now. And this morning, a box appeared at my door. No label. Inside, a lab coat. My name stitched neatly. A single scalpel and a Polaroid. I'm standing in Bay 1, smiling. I don't remember the photo being taken, but I can feel my hands start to move. The cut will be perfect. It always is. The end. They told me not to talk about the 8th floor, didn't laugh, didn't wink, just handed me the uniform, the mop key, and said, if the elevator lights up 8, don't get in, call us, walk away. Simple. The building was supposed to have 7 floors. Records archive, government run, smelled like old toner and floor wax. I was a temp, swing shift, 10 to 6. Just me and a night guard named Carla who watched K-dramas with her earbuds in and never left the desk. By my second week, I knew the place. 4th floor was always sticky. 6th had a busted light that flickered like a dying bug, but there was no 8th. The panel didn't even have a button for it. Until Tuesday. 1:43 a.m., I was finishing mopping outside the law records room. Elevator dinged behind me. I turned. The display above the doors glowed red. 8, no button press, no call log, just 8. The doors slid open, empty. I leaned in. Nothing. Lights humming. The panel now showed a full row, 1 through 8. I hit close. It stayed open. I stepped in. Shouldn't have. I hit 8. The doors sealed. There was no sensation of movement, just a blink. Then the light above changed. 8. The doors opened. I stepped out into the 4th floor. Sort of. Same layout, same room signs, but everything was off. The floors were stained, walls water damaged, fluorescence buzzed unevenly, and it smelled like copper, like something wet and rotting, just out of sight. I turned back. Elevator was gone, just a blank wall. I walked down the hall. Storage room 419. I cleaned it 2 nights ago. Now, dust thick enough to write in. Mop marks erased. A file cabinet buzzed with flies. I opened it. Inside were dozens of personnel folders, all mine. Different photos, different uniforms, all labeled Leon Garrison, prior custodian. Dates, 1989, 1996, 2003. Stamped in red across each. Terminated during protocol breach. I dropped them. The hallway stretched, longer than I remembered. I turned a corner, ran straight into someone. She looked like Carla, but her eyes didn't focus, just stared past me. I said, "Hey, I think I'm lost." She spoke over me. Protocol breach is containment failure. Containment failure is termination. Over and over, same tone, same pitch. I stepped back. She kept walking like I wasn't there. Down the hall. Through a locked door, no key card, no beep, just gone. I checked my phone, battery full, no bars. The time said 11:11. It had been 1:43 when I got in. I hadn't been here that long. Had I? I started opening rooms. Each one was a version of somewhere I'd already cleaned, but altered. Mops unwashed, trash bins overflowing, personal items covered in mold, and in every mirror I saw myself, older, tired, bleeding from the scalp. One mirror showed me dragging a body. I shut that door, hard. I heard the elevator ding, ran toward the sound. The doors were open. I sprinted in, pressed 1, felt the motion this time, slow like dragging a dead weight. The panel blinked, 5, 4, 3, 8. I hit the panel, nothing changed. The doors opened, same hallway, same floor. I stepped out, but this time every door was ajar, and inside each room someone stood perfectly still, facing the corner, mumbling. I couldn't make out words, until one voice broke rhythm. "Leon?" I froze. "Leon, you're early this time." It was me, standing in room 422, smiling. I backed away. He stepped forward. "Don't worry, you'll adjust. We all do." His skin looked worn, like plastic left in the sun. His eyes were missing, just smooth, blank sockets. I turned, ran. Every hallway twisted, no exit. My watch spun violently. The hands rattled behind the glass. I felt something warm trickle from my ear. Blood, or ink, hard to tell down there. Eventually I collapsed, slept, passed out, woke up in the break room on the 3rd floor. Daylight. My mop propped against the wall, Carla watching TV. "Rough night?" she said. I stared at her. "No, the elevator, the 8th floor, She looked at me, flat, there's no 8th floor. Then turned back to her screen. I checked the elevator. Panel showed 1 through 7, nothing in between. Except now when I take the elevator down at shift end, there's no button for 1, only 2 through 8. And every night, the elevator dings. 8, I never press it, but the door's still open, and sometimes I see myself inside, smiling, waiting. The end. It started with a whisper on the baby monitor. Not Lila's voice, mine. Not adult me, child me. Describing darkness, cold walls, a chain. "There's no basement," I said out loud, holding the monitor like it might bite, but my childhood voice continued, calm, soft, like a bedtime story. She locks me in when I say too much, but I remember what she did. I unplugged the monitor, no change. The voice kept going. The next morning, Leela called her mother too, her imaginary friend. I didn't flinch at first. Every kid invents someone. I'm a trauma therapist. I've seen enough projections and coping mechanisms to recognize them. "She's like you, but quieter," Lila said, chewing toast. "She watches better." "Watches what?" I asked. She smiled, eyes still full of sleep. "You." That day I locked my office. The files inside were sensitive, cases I couldn't forget even if I wanted to. Like Parker Gray, schizophrenic, unmedicated, paranoid. I believed him when no one else did. Let him go. 2 weeks later, he shot his wife and child. Then himself. I changed firms after that. Changed states. No one knew about Parker, except Lila. That night, she drew a picture of him. Crude, but unmistakable. The beard, the scar under one eye, she taped it to the fridge. "Mother too says he didn't mean it," she said. My legs buckled. I told myself she heard it on TV, except there was no coverage. Not anymore. I burned the drawing. Next morning, it was back. In my purse, folded perfectly, no crease from the fire. Lila didn't know I carried a purse. I checked the locks on the doors, changed the baby monitor. It still spoke in my voice. I didn't scream, that's why she liked me, but the other one screamed. I started keeping wine in the shower. 2 nights later, I woke to scratching under my pillow. I reached beneath, another drawing, me hanging from the porch. Stick figures in masks surrounded the house. One was holding Leela. I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a knife from the kitchen. By dawn, my hands were shaking too hard to hold it. Lila came outside barefoot, holding a cup of juice. "She said you'd try this," she said, "but it doesn't help." I asked who she was. Lila pointed at her own shadow. That afternoon, I tore through the attic, looking for something. Anything. There was no basement. I knew there wasn't, except the floor creaked weird in the hallway. Near the linen closet, I moved the shelf, pulled back the rug, and there it was, a square outline. Nails sealed it shut. I didn't remember it, but my hands did. They moved without thought, wrenching nails, pulling boards. Cold air hit my face. A ladder. I descended. Stone walls, rusted chain bolted into concrete. A child's shoe, pink. Mine. I threw up in the corner. Above me, I heard Lila humming. The tune was old, my lullaby. That night, the monitor showed static until 3:12 a.m., then it flickered, and I saw myself, sleeping. From above, a camera angle. I checked the room, no device, no phone, just the monitor. Then my sleeping self turned, faced the camera, eyes open, smiling. I screamed. The image cut to black. Lila didn't stir. Next morning she asked why I was crying in my sleep. I didn't answer. There was a drawing on the fridge of me, watching me. From inside my own eyes I burned it, again. But this time it bled. Red seeped through the lines, smelled like iron. I threw it in the sink. Lila stood in the doorway. "She knows you lied," she whispered. I turned. "What lie?" Lila's eyes went distant. "About the girl, the one you never saved." My lungs stopped. She meant Trina. 8 years old. I was too slow. Missed the signs. Her uncle drowned her in the tub. I lit a candle for her every birthday after. Never told anyone. The file was sealed, shredded. I checked the attic. Her file was there, perfect, untouched, tucked inside a picture book. I asked Lila if she'd been upstairs. She shook her head. "Mother too says you're almost ready." "For what?" Lila smiled. "To switch. I don't know what's mine anymore. Sometimes I hear myself talking, but I'm not speaking. Sometimes I see a drawing before Lila makes it. Last night, the monitor turned on without power. It showed me sleeping again. But this time, I didn't wake up, even when the screen version of me stood up, walked to the crib, picked up Lila, and whispered something. The monitor cut out. Lila was asleep in bed when I checked, still breathing. But in the morning she asked if she could call me Mother too. Just for a while. Just until the real Natalie comes back. The end. The first thing I noticed about Crofton's Gap was the quiet. Not peaceful quiet, smothered quiet, like a breath held too long. I was a substitute, not a savior. Just needed out of Pittsburgh. Too much heat after the protest fallout. Schools wouldn't touch me. Crofton's Gap offered a temp contract. No questions. Small town, old buildings, that stiff coal town friendliness. The elementary school sat at the edge of town. Red brick, chain link fences, cracked asphalt. And the playground? Built over a closed mine shaft. Nothing to worry about, the principal said. Capped back in '82. Perfectly safe. Still, kids weren't allowed to dig. Didn't stop Elijah, 7 years old, skin like porcelain, eyes too still. He never ran with the others, just sat by the sandbox, hands deep in dirt. "They're breathing," he said one afternoon. I crouched. "Who's breathing?" He pressed one hand to the ground. "Them." I laughed. Nervous reflex. That night I Googled the mine. No public records past 1983. Next morning, recess was canceled. Landscaping, they said, but the crew didn't have equipment, just shovels, one truck. They came at night. When recess resumed, the air felt off, too still. The kids were edgy, wouldn't go near the sandbox, except Elijah. He dug deeper. Then the sinkhole opened, swallowed a girl's leg to the hip before they yanked her free. No ambulance. The principal called it settling. I didn't believe it. I stayed late. Checked the nurse's logs, nothing filed, no incident report, like it never happened. I started digging into archives, town meetings, land records, found a pattern. Sinkholes every 8 to 10 years, each time a settlement, non-disclosure agreements, payouts sealed by the school district. I brought it to the principal. He smiled. "Let sleeping dirt lie, Mr. Dorn." A week later, I found the first letter in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a black and white photo, a tunnel. Lined with child-sized coffins, metal lids open, figures inside, pale and still, some smiling, no message. Next day, another envelope, soil sample. I had a friend in Philly, ran a test, anesthetics, trace hormones, something else he couldn't identify. He called me after midnight. "These are suppression agents," he said, "growth inhibitors. Where the hell did this come from?" I didn't answer. Elijah was absent that week. Then he came back, but something was different. His eyes didn't blink right. Too slow, too deliberate. During lunch, he sat beside me, called me father. I froze. "You said you'd come back," he whispered. I asked what he meant. He drew something in his mashed potatoes, a tree, roots like arms, hands reaching upward. The playground tree looked just like it. I left my lunch, started walking the perimeter of the yard, found something behind the equipment shed. A hatch, rusted, padlocked, but the lock was old, broke it with a crowbar. Ladder led down into darkness. Dirt floor, stone walls, old air, thick and sweet like rotting fruit. I followed the tunnel. Saw drawings, child hands, crude figures, some crossed out, some labeled with names I recognized. Students from my class. Halfway down I found it. A row of metal drawers, each just large enough for a child. Some open, empty, some closed, one still cold. Inside, dirt, just dirt. I climbed out shaking. Found a parent waiting at my car. Smiled like we were old friends. "Appreciate the gift," she said. "Elijah's very special." I asked what she meant. She touched my arm. "You chose well, just like before." I didn't know what that meant until the last letter arrived. No message, just a photograph. Me, 6 years old, standing in front of Crofton's Gap Elementary, smiling, dated 1994. I wasn't born until 1997, or so I thought. The end. I first noticed the movement on a Thursday. The light above the door was off, and my roommate Ginny was already wheezing softly in her bed across the room. I just finished journaling, what little I could write with my right hand still shaky from the stroke, and was staring at the ceiling when the faintest whisper of a sound touched the air. A motor, maybe. Something shifting just slightly. The camera. It didn't move far. Just a twitch, maybe 10 degrees to the left. Enough that it now faced directly over Ginny's side of the room. I didn't say anything the next morning. Why would I? They'd already told us the cameras were deactivated. For liability protection, they'd said, smiling. No audio, no recording, just deterrence. Deterrence. That week, Mr. Halpern from down the hall was gone. The nurses said he'd had a fall. Transferred to a more appropriate care facility, they said. No one questioned it. No one ever did. But I remembered the camera. I hadn't lost my mind. Not yet. I may be half paralyzed in 72, but I wasn't a goddamn idiot. I used to uncover state corruption for a living. I knew how people looked when they were lying. And the night before Halpern relocated, I'd seen that exact twitch in the hallway camera as I was being wheeled back from physical therapy. So I called in a favor. Thomas, an old contact from the Tribune, was still in IT consulting. I didn't tell him where I was, not exactly. Just that I needed access to a secure internal network, and I needed it fast. He laughed at first. "You're hacking a nursing home?" he'd said. But the minute I explained the cameras, his tone shifted. "Send me the router address," he said. "I'll tunnel you in." 2 days later, I had the access codes, and that night, while Ginny snored with the gentle finality of someone sedated, I opened the staff portal on my tablet. I expected security footage. What I found were folders, dozens of them, each one labeled with a residence ID number, and inside, clips, no timestamps, just fragments, blurry, looping, but unmistakable. Here was Mr. Halpern in his room, sitting up as a nurse entered with a silver case. She smiled, he blinked slowly, she rolled up his sleeve, and then he collapsed. Another clip, same room, different day. The nurse repositioned his bed, replaced photos on the nightstand. Family pictures were swapped for strangers, med bottles relabeled. By the last clip, Halpern was back, sitting, smiling, eyes glossy. He waved toward the camera. I felt something seize in my throat. I couldn't swallow. I clicked into Ginny's folder. Injection, adjustment, return. Always the same sequence. That night, I tried to wake her. "Ginny," I whispered, gripping her thin wrist. "We're not safe here." Her eyes opened slowly. She stared at me, unfocused, and then she smiled. "Don't be afraid, Miriam," she said. "The cameras are for our protection." I pulled away. The next morning, her bed was stripped. Her side of the room looked like she'd never existed. I told the charge nurse. She frowned kindly, the way people do when they think you're drifting. "You've always had this room to yourself, Miriam," she said, "since you arrived." I tried to show her the tablet, the footage, but the files were gone. Every folder, deleted. Later that afternoon, I started to shake. Not just the normal tremor, not just age, full-on tremors, like withdrawal. Except I didn't take anything that could cause withdrawal, did I? I buzzed the desk. "Check my chart," I said. "I'm not supposed to be on anything new." The nurse tilted her head. "You've been prescribed haloxan since admission," she said. "It's for your mood stabilization." My heart stuttered. "I never." "You signed the consent form, Miss Bell. We have it on record." They had it all on record. I tried writing. My hands scrawled unintelligibly. I recorded myself talking, hoping to catch a moment of lucidity. I played it back. My voice wasn't mine. It was calm, even. I am Miriam Bell. I fabricated stories during my journalism career. I regret harming public trust. I dropped the tablet. What the hell was happening to me? I searched through the closet. Every notebook I'd kept, every journal page, I flipped them open. The writing was unfamiliar. It was in my hand, but it wasn't mine. The next night, I refused my medication. I pressed my emergency button again and again. No one came. The hallway light outside my room flickered. I heard wheels. My door opened. 3 staff members entered, all smiling. "It's all right, Miriam," one said. "Let's get you adjusted." I screamed. They rolled me onto my side, strapped my arm. I kicked, bit down, nothing worked. Cold alcohol, needle, darkness. I woke up smiling. My tablet was gone. Guinea's bed was back. She was knitting. "Lovely weather today," she said. I nodded. I couldn't remember what I'd been afraid of, but something still felt wrong. I kept forgetting words, places, faces. One day the TV played a rerun of a congressional hearing. I leaned forward. The woman on screen, 20 years younger, strong voice, sharp eyes, was me. "Miriam Bell reporting," she said. "Tonight we expose evidence of covert euthanasia protocols in elder care facilities." The screen flickered. I stared at myself. I'd broken this story years ago, and now I was in one. I wasn't being protected. I was being erased. The end. They told me the apartment was a perk. "The company's really investing in continuity," the recruiter said. "You'll be one of the first to experience the integrated environment." It sounded like something from a marketing deck, but I didn't care. After 6 months of sending resumes into the void, the idea of a salaried position, plus housing, sounded like salvation. Urban continuity restoration. Whatever that meant. The building was sleek, polished black glass, touch-responsive walls, AI-controlled lighting. My unit, 8C, came fully furnished. Every surface shimmered with newness. Even the fridge had that chemically clean smell, like plastic still warming into shape. But something was off. That first night I couldn't sleep. Not because of noise, there wasn't any. Not even from the other units. Just silence, so deep I could hear the blood in my ears. And then the lights flickered. Not randomly, in sync with my blinking. I tested it, closed one eye at a time. The ceiling track lights mirrored it, pulse for pulse. I laughed at first. Smart lighting, I told myself. Too smart. In the bathroom, I stared at the mirror for a long time. My reflection felt delayed, like it was buffering. When I moved, it hesitated for just a second too long. I leaned in. There was a pinhole in the shower head. It was a camera. I called the front desk. Someone answered before the second ring. "We'll send maintenance," the voice said. 2 minutes later, there was a knock. 2 men in gray uniforms entered without waiting. The taller one looked around. "Problem in the bathroom, Mr. Walters?" I froze. "My name is Cross," I said. "Evan Cross." They didn't correct themselves. They didn't apologize. One of them smiled too wide. "Don't worry, we'll recalibrate your amenities." Recalibrate. They left without fixing anything. That night, the skyline changed. From my window, I always saw the same cityscape. Modest towers, dim streets, a monorail line humming below. But the next morning it was different. Taller buildings, different geometry, more brutalist. I checked the weather app. It still said New York. I opened maps. It couldn't locate me. Network delay, it said. I told myself it was a graphics issue, glitchy AR overlay, but I couldn't stop watching the window. Every morning, a new city. The names on my mail started changing too. Cross, Gross, Ross. At one point, the envelope just read, resident. I called HR. The line rang forever. Finally, someone picked up. "Welcome to the orientation interface," said a mechanical voice. "Press 1 for mental health, 2 for digital integration." I hung up. I checked the lease. My name was the only one listed. No property manager, no corporate address. I visited the other floors. Unit 7C, 6C, 5C. Same layout, same furniture, same painting. One of those soulless abstract prints in grayscale. All of them empty. I knocked on 9C. No answer. As I turned away, I heard it, my own voice, from behind the door. "Hey, sorry, not a good time right now." Except I hadn't said it. I ran back to my unit. The lights pulsed as I passed. The hall seemed longer than before. When I reached my door, the keypad asked for a fingerprint. I'd never set one. I pressed my thumb anyway. It opened. Inside, the temperature had changed. The air was humid. The couch moved. A coffee mug on the counter that hadn't been there before. Still warm. I stared at it, then at the blueprints. I downloaded them during onboarding. Basic architectural schematics for the building. I opened them again, scrolled through. There it was, Unit 8C, and again, an infinite stack of 8Cs, each slightly different. One with no kitchen, one with 4 windows, one with a staircase that led nowhere, looping, overlapping. I printed the plans. Spread them across the floor. Some didn't make sense geometrically, angles that shouldn't exist. It hit me then. I wasn't in a building, I was in a test. I scoured the code embedded in the PDFs. They had metadata. Camera path A, memory variant B, subject ID 742. Subject, not employee. I tried leaving, walked to the elevator, pressed ground. The screen said, approval pending. I took the stairs. They led back to my hallway. 8C again. I kicked the door. It opened too easily. Inside, the couch was gone. The bed was in the kitchen. A projector screen flickered to life. Footage played. Me, entering 8C for the first time, smiling, saying, this place is amazing. Next clip, me brushing my teeth. Then, me sobbing into my hands. Clip after clip, all me. But I didn't remember any of it. And then, final clip. A boardroom. Technicians watching. A woman said reconstructed from behavioral composites. We mapped him using surveillance from 27 city blocks. Let's see how long the memory structure holds. My throat closed. I wasn't Evan Cross, I was Data, a test subject, a simulation. I stared at my hands, tried to remember my childhood, my mother's face, my first kiss. Nothing came, just static. The projector blinked off. A voice came through the ceiling. Test concluded. The floor vibrated, walls retracted, behind them more rooms, more screens, more copies, rows of me, frozen mid-step. The skyline outside flickered again, gone, blank white, and then darkness, the end. I didn't even pick the house. My realtor did. Quiet neighborhood, she'd said, perfect for a fresh start. It was. A wide cul-de-sac, neatly trimmed hedges, kids riding scooters. Everyone waved like they already knew me. The first red flag came on day 3. Mail. 3 letters, all addressed to Julia Spencer, postmarked 6 months ago. Same name, same spelling, same address. I called the post office. Probably a misscan, they said. Or maybe it's a welcome forward glitch. But then the librarian smiled when I checked out a book. Oh, you're back, she said. Still into thrillers, huh? I just moved in, I said. She laughed. You're the nice one. I dropped the book. When I got home, someone had left muffins on my porch. A card handwritten. Welcome home, Julia. You've been missed. I should have left then. But where would I go? The divorce had hollowed me out. This place was supposed to be my restart. My space. The next day, my car drove past me. Same make, same license plate. Someone identical to me in the driver's seat. I ran into the street. It kept driving. I asked my neighbor, Stan. He was trimming roses. Hey, did you see that car? I asked. He didn't even look up. You're always pulling stunts like this, he muttered. You should know better by now. That night, I found a scratch behind my ear. Thin, shallow, like something inserted and removed. I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I walked across the cul-de-sac. The house directly across from mine. Same shutters, same potted plant, same porch swing, unlocked. I stepped inside, same layout, same photos. Except the frames held people I'd never met. A birthday party. Kids calling me mom. A man I'd never touched kissing my cheek. A calendar in the kitchen. Today, Julia's doctor, 10 a.m. remove implant. I backed away. Upstairs, a TV was on. Security footage, looping, of me, moving in, again and again. Same suitcase, same steps, same first smile. I ran. Tried the main road. Every turn redirected me. Detour signs, construction cones, cops waving me back. Eventually, I ended up back in front of my house. Mine. Someone stood in the window. Me. Watching. I turned off the car. Listened. My heart loud. My breath short. I crept to the door. It was ajar. Inside, silence. Except upstairs. The faint sound of a drawer opening. I grabbed a kitchen knife. Stepped quietly. The hallway narrowed. The walls seemed wrong. Angled. At the end, the bedroom door was cracked. Light inside. I pushed it open. There I was, packing. Not surprised. Calm. She looked up. Smiled. You never left, she said. You just forgot. The footage played behind her. Dozens of me. Failing, breaking, resetting. You're not real, I whispered. She tilted her head. Neither are you. I lunged, but she was gone. Just the mirror. Just me. Alone. I stumbled back downstairs. Outside, neighbors watched. Smiling, frozen, identical. I ran. Back across the street. Into the copy house. Photos had changed. Now they showed me crying, begging, screaming at no one. Footage, me watching myself watching footage, endless, looping. I sat on the couch, breathless, tired. A voice from upstairs, unpack. I looked at the bags I hadn't touched since I arrived. Opened one. Inside, a framed photo of me, standing on the porch, smiling. Someone watched from the upstairs window. Me. The end. It was supposed to be a 2-day trip, just a quick drive to the lake with my daughter's kids. But when I got the call from my neighbor, panicked, her voice cracking, it was already too late. Greg, they're evacuating the whole metro. Contamination alert, you have to. The line went dead. We turned around immediately, but the highways were sealed. Detours rerouted us in wide, pointless loops. By the time I got clearance to return, it was 5 days later. The city looked untouched. Traffic lights blinked, garbage still bagged at curbs, no damage, no sign of disaster, just silence, complete, impossible silence. I drove to my house, mail sat untouched in the box, my front door recognized my key fob, everything functioned, except people, there were none. I turned on the radio, a calm voice looped, remain indoors, restoration in progress, citizen safety is our priority. No mention of what happened, no dates, no live feed, the power was still on, so was the water. I ordered groceries out of habit. The drone dropped them within 15 minutes. Except I didn't order batteries, or gauze, or a canister labeled Supplement D, Human Behavioral Stabilizer. The label read, for citizen test subject number 18. I checked the app history. It showed one order, cereal and milk. I walked to the neighbor's place. Their porch light was on, mail untouched. Inside, locked, curtains drawn. But I saw a shadow move. I knocked. No answer. That night, a second drone arrived. This time it dropped a box with no return label. Inside, a wristband, matte black, no buttons. It latched to my wrist the moment I touched it. Compliance device registered, said a voice from nowhere. I yanked it off. Immediately the room temperature plunged. My thermostat flashed, protocol breach, correction in progress. I could see my breath. I put the band back on. The heat returned instantly. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Gregory, her voice. My wife's voice, dead 4 years. Why'd you leave the door open, honey? She said. It's not safe. I dropped the phone. The call continued. She told you not to come back. I unplugged the landline. The radio loop changed. Citizen 18, non-compliance registered. Isolation protocol now active. Outside, the streetlights went dark, except for one. It blinked steadily outside my house. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I walked to City Hall. Motion detectors opened the doors. Inside, empty desks. Monitors running code, screens blinked with names, mine included. Beside it, status, unfiled return. Another monitor showed drone cam footage, me, walking, eating, sitting. Caption, erratic pattern, observe further. I backed away. On the wall behind the receptionist's desk, a sign, remember, they were never meant to return. I ran, no cars on the road, no birds, no planes, only the buzz of electricity. A voice from the sky, Gregory Lance, remain calm, reintegration was not approved. I reached the library, doors opened, inside, humming machines, books gone, shelves replaced by server stacks, one terminal was active. Log, Citizen 18, legacy file reanimation halt fail. I typed, who am I? Response, this instance was not designed for reinsertion. The screen blinked. Gregory Lance died during initial sweep. I backed away. Memory structure reconstructed for observation testing. Test failed. I turned to leave, but I saw me, on the security feed. Walking through a different street, wearing the same clothes, moving slightly out of sync. Another me. The system looped, trying again, failing again. Outside, the radio crackled. Final reset commencing. Citizen 18 is no longer observable. I sprinted home. The house was gone. In its place, flat earth, white grid lines, a single chair. On the chair, the wristband. Already fastened, I sat. The world blinked, and then nothing, except her voice. You missed the last evacuation. The end. The ad said secluded, serene, perfect for healing. I should have known better. But after the miscarriage, I didn't care where I went. I just needed out. Out of the apartment, out of the stairs, out of the casseroles, and at least you tried. The house was all steel and glass, modern, cold. It sat alone on a bluff in Oregon, facing the sea like it had nothing to apologize for. "Don't use the nursery," the owner had said over the phone. "We haven't cleared it out yet." I told them that was fine. I wasn't interested in any room with a crib. First night, I heard the crying, thin, distant, like it came through the walls. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was the wind, but it came again, more insistent. So I went to the nursery, door unlocked, inside, immaculate, crib, toys, changing table stocked with fresh wipes, a rocking chair, and on the wall a photo of me, holding a baby, smiling. I never took that photo. I closed the door, hard. Back in my room, I tried to call the homeowners. No answer, just static. I checked the listing, no address listed. I pulled up my GPS, it showed I was at a hospital, in the nursery wing. I dropped the phone. That night, the crying got louder, closer. I shoved towels under the nursery door, turned on music, still heard it. At 3 a.m., I woke to find my arms cradled around nothing, empty. But my hands were rocking. On instinct, I called the police. They arrived, walked the property, took notes, then asked me to confirm the address. I gave it to them. They looked at each other. "There's nothing here by that number," one said. "GPS has this listed as unassigned land." I pointed to the house behind me. He frowned. "You all right, ma'am?" I screamed. They drove off. I slammed every door, unplugged every monitor. Still, footage played on the screens. Me, sleeping. Sometimes with something bundled in my arms. Sometimes humming. I didn't hum. I never hummed. One night, I followed the crying into the kitchen. The fridge was gone. In its place, a bassinet, the same one from the hospital. I knew it, because I'd stood over it, weeks ago. Empty. Now it held something swaddled, moving. I stepped back. The house shifted. Rooms changed shape. The guest room became a second nursery. Mirrors turned into monitors. I found a note on the table. "Thank you for watching her." No signature. I stopped sleeping. When I blinked too long, I'd find myself cradling towels, a robe, a bag of flour, calling it sweet names. I smashed the monitors. They turned back on, always showing me, smiling, cooing. The final night, I curled up in the bathroom, locked the door. The crying came through the drains, high-pitched, hungry. I pressed my palms to my ears. Blood thudded. My own heart, not alone. A second beat, fainter, smaller. Inside me, I crawled into the nursery, the original one, sat in the rocking chair, cradled the sheet like it mattered, whispered lullabies I didn't know I remembered. When they found me weeks later, I was frozen solid, smiling, arms wrapped tight around nothing, or everything, depending who you ask. The end. He always got on one stop after mine. Didn't matter which seat I picked, which direction I faced, or how early I boarded. He'd appear just as the bus doors sighed open and sit directly behind me. Not across, not nearby, always behind. The first time I barely noticed. Just a slow shuffle, the hiss of jacket fabric, the scrape of jeans on vinyl. He smelled like mildew and menthol, breathed like he'd just run a mile. The second night I switched seats, mid-ride, subtle. Got up like I needed to check something and slid into an empty row near the back. A minute later, shuffle, sigh, scrape. There he was, right behind me again, just breathing. That night, I didn't sleep. The third night, I sat up front near the driver, close enough to hear her hum along with the radio. Halfway through the route at Oak and Fifth, the man got on again. Same heavy boots, same cracked leather coat. He didn't hesitate, walked past all the empty rows and sat right behind me. The driver didn't say anything. I didn't look back. The breathing was louder up front. By Friday, I'd memorized the schedules, cross-referenced alternate buses, took the 9 instead of the 12, changed my hoodie, even wore a mask. He still found me, always sat behind me. My friend Tanya thought I was overreacting. "It's public transit," she said. "Creeps exist. Just file a report or take an Uber." I tried. I showed the security footage to the campus guard. He squinted at the screen, then looked at me sideways. "You're riding alone, kid. There's no one behind you." I paused the frame, right there, seat 14B, a shadow behind my shoulder, but on the next frame, it was gone. I started keeping my phone in my hand, open mic, always recording, but when I played it back at night, there was no breathing, just the rumble of the bus and the crackle of old speakers. Saturday, my mom called. I answered on the second ring, trying to sound normal. "Malik," she said, her voice stiff. Why'd you tell Auntie you've been home? You haven't been here in days. Your room's still locked. I swallowed. I came home Tuesday, after class. No, baby, she said, you didn't. My hand started shaking. The bus jerked forward and I dropped the phone. When I picked it up, the line was dead. The man behind me exhaled. Slow, damp, I sat frozen, just listening, counting the seconds between each breath. I felt him shift slightly, coat brushing the seat. No one else was on the bus. I wanted to turn around. I didn't. Sunday I skipped the bus, stayed on campus until 2 a.m., pacing outside the closed library, hoping maybe I'd broken the pattern. That maybe if I missed it once, it would end. At 2:17 a.m., I felt a presence behind me on the sidewalk. He never touched me, just followed, 10 feet back. When I crossed the street, so did he. When I ducked into a corner store, he waited outside. When I ran, I mean really ran, he didn't chase me, just kept walking. Same pace, same rhythm. I called Tanya again, no answer. I called Mom, straight to voicemail. I slept in the campus bathroom that night, kept the door locked and the lights on, tried to convince myself it was some prank. Maybe someone from class messing with me. Maybe I'd seen a story online and it was bleeding into my head. But when I opened my backpack that morning, there was a bus transfer slip inside. Route 12. Timestamp 1:40 a.m., seat 14A. I never got on that night, or I don't remember getting on. Monday afternoon, a woman boarded halfway through the route, sat down across from me without looking up. Her eyes were dull, heavy, like she hadn't slept in weeks. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You shouldn't talk to the last rider, she said. I turned, startled. What? She didn't look at me. That seat, she murmured. It was sealed after the incident. I stared at her, throat dry. What incident? Her lips parted slightly. Then she looked past me, behind me, her mouth shut. She pulled the cord and got off at the next stop. I turned around. No one was there. I stumbled off the bus 3 stops early and walked to the public library. The lights flickered constantly, and the computer terminals felt greasy, like they hadn't been cleaned in weeks. I searched everything I could think of, keywords, old news, forums, and I found it exactly 5 years ago. Same bus line. Route 12, a student, male, black, 19, reported being followed by a silent man on the night bus. Said the stalker always sat behind him. No name given. Report filed and dismissed due to lack of evidence. The student vanished 2 weeks later. I kept scrolling. There was one more line. Anonymous tip filed by a fellow rider, name redacted. I felt sick. I clicked the link to the scanned report image. The name wasn't redacted. It was mine. Filed March 2nd, 5 years ago. I stared at the screen, breath stuck in my throat. I don't remember making that report. But it was my name. My phone buzzed. New voicemail. Unknown number. I hit play. Breathing. Wet. Slow. Too close to the mic. Then a whisper. You're almost home. I threw the phone against the wall. It cracked but didn't break. Outside, the sun had vanished. I don't remember the day ending. My reflection in the terminal screen wasn't synced with my movements. I ran out of the library, got to the street. The bus was already waiting. Doors open. I don't remember walking toward it. I don't remember choosing a seat, but I was there, front row. He got on 1 stop later, sat behind me. I looked at the driver. She didn't move, didn't blink. I leaned forward. Do you see him? She kept staring ahead. Please, I whispered. I need to get off. The bus kept moving. I felt the man lean forward just enough for his breath to hit my neck. He spoke for the first time. You reported it. My skin burned. You were the last one, he said. Now you follow. I turned in my seat, fast, wild. No one was there, just an empty row. I stood up, heart pounding. Moved to the back of the bus, pacing, checking every seat. The driver's voice came over the intercom. Sit down. I froze. I said sit down, she repeated. I sat. 3rd row from the back. He slid into the seat behind me. I don't know how I didn't hear him move. I kept still, eyes forward, trying not to breathe, trying not to exist. Another stop passed, then another. No one got on. The world outside the windows looked off. Same buildings, same signs. But the light was wrong. Flat, dusty, like a faded photograph left in the sun. I pulled the cord. Nothing happened. The man behind me sighed. The bus turned left onto a street that didn't exist. I recognized none of it, but it all felt familiar, like I'd been here before. The breathing got slower, not fainter, slower, measured. I reached into my pocket, no phone. I checked my bag, nothing inside, just a transfer slip. March 2nd, Route 12, seat 14A. I don't remember boarding this ride, but I've never gotten off. The end. The smell hit me first, like syrup poured over mold, sweet, then sour, thick enough to coat the inside of my nose. I held my breath and stepped over the threshold. The house belonged to a man named Ellis North, reclusive, mid-60s, no family listed, rent prepaid for the year, no noise complaints, no visitors. The only red flag was the smell, reported by the tenant in the next unit. Said it was like wet paint and something old. I expected garbage, maybe dead rodents. Typical hoarder stuff. I wasn't expecting the walls. Every surface, hallway, kitchen, even the inside of the pantry was plastered with children's drawings. Hundreds of them, torn at the edges, scribbled with waxy crayons, faded markers, chalk smears, some taped, others glued directly to the drywall. I leaned in closer. They weren't just random scribbles. Each paper showed a room, a door, a figure, repeated again and again. Sometimes the figure stood, sometimes it crouched. One drawing showed the stick figure curled up in the corner, arms over its head. I heard a creak behind me. Ellis stood at the top of the stairs, pale, thin, watching. "You're not here to touch the insulation, are you?" he asked. I tried to sound calm. "Just here for a standard check, Mr. North. We had a complaint about a smell." He started down the stairs slowly, one hand dragging along the drawings. His fingers left smudges. "They keep the house whole," he said. "If you take one down, the others get loud." I made a note. "You mean the drawings?" He smiled. His teeth were gray. "That's not what they are." I backed out politely and told him I'd return tomorrow with a notice. I didn't sleep that night. When I closed my eyes, I was back in that house, only this time I couldn't move. The drawings pulsed like skin. A soft thumping echoed behind the walls, slow and irregular, like a heartbeat with a limp. In the dream, I turned to run, and the floor was gone. I jolted awake to static from the baby monitor. I haven't had kids in years. The device was boxed in the attic. I checked it anyway. Nothing there. The next day, I filed the condemnation notice and returned with it in hand. Ellis didn't answer the door. I walked inside. The smell was stronger, but not rotten, more like charred wax. I stepped into the living room and froze. There was a new drawing, pinned dead center on the largest wall. My name, Marjorie, was scrawled in shaky block letters across the top. Below, a stick figure bled from its eyes. The eyes weren't crayon. They were gouged into the paper, pressed so hard the wall beneath was dented. I turned and left. That night, I dreamed of the drawing, except I was inside it, crumpling, flattening, paper thin. The walls pressed in and I felt ink leaking from my eyes, burning as it fell. When I woke, my pillow was damp. I checked the mirror. Nothing, but my eyes itched all day. Wednesday, I visited my supervisor, Kent. Told him everything. He laughed, said I was stressed. I asked him to go instead. He agreed. He didn't come back. Thursday morning, I found a voicemail on my office line. No caller ID, just static. Then Kent's voice, "Don't peel anything. They're not done." I drove to the house, left the engine running. Inside, it was darker. The windows were covered now, taped over with more drawings. I walked through the front hall. Every drawing had changed. One showed me standing in the kitchen. Another, me opening the front door. A third showed me holding a piece of paper I hadn't seen yet. I reached the living room. There it was, pinned to the same wall, a drawing of me, holding a drawing. I looked down at my hands, empty. I checked my bag, pulled out a random report sheet, held it up. The figure in the drawing did the same. I dropped the paper and stumbled backward. Something inside the wall giggled, high-pitched, delighted. The house trembled just a little, like it had exhaled. I ran. Friday, I called a structural engineer, claimed the house might have foundational issues. He went in alone. He never came out. Saturday, I went back. There was a new drawing in the hallway. My car parked outside. My license plate copied perfectly in red crayon. Above it, a note in childish handwriting, "Don't forget to close the door." I checked the front door. It was ajar. I hadn't noticed opening it. Inside, the air buzzed. I touched one of the older drawings. My finger came away warm, sticky. They weren't made with crayon anymore. That night, I found a notebook tucked inside my glove compartment. I didn't put it there. Handwritten. Pages and pages of dense, frantic notes. All about the house. A sealed narrative loop, one line repeated. The walls are not memory, they are process. Further down, she's part of the architecture now, she draws in her sleep. I closed the notebook, my fingers smelled like wax. I started hearing the voice on Sunday, faint, muffled, like a kid whispering through a cereal box tube. "You're doing so good," it said. I didn't speak, just kept driving. The house appeared sooner than expected. I checked the clock. 2:17 p.m., same time every day, even when I didn't leave at the same time, even when I tried not to go. Monday, the drawings moved, not obviously. I'd blink, and the stick figures would be slightly different. Heads tilted, arms bent, one leaned out of frame. By evening, they all faced the same direction, toward the wall. I followed their gaze. There was a hole, small, like a nail had been yanked out, but something was behind it, something watching. I stared. It whispered again, "You were always going to be here." I stepped back. The drawings fluttered, the air thickened. One drawing slid off the wall and landed at my feet. It showed me standing in the living room holding a lighter. I picked it up. The lighter was in my pocket. I don't remember packing it. Tuesday morning, I stayed in bed. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself this was over. At 2:17 p.m., my car keys were in my hand. I was halfway to the house before I realized I'd left the door open again. The drawings welcomed me. That's what it felt like they'd been waiting. Every wall showed me, crouching, running, screaming. One showed me sleeping, a crayon in my hand, my mouth open. Another drawing lay on the table. It was blank, a single line written across the top, "Your turn." I picked up the crayon without meaning to. My hand moved. I drew the house, I drew the walls, I drew myself, walking into this room. I drew the paper in my hand and then a tap from inside the wall, right where I'd drawn it. I turned, pressed my ear to the drywall. It breathed. "You're almost done." Wednesday, final inspection. I brought everything, flashlight, clipboard, camera, a box of matches. I stepped inside. The house didn't smell anymore. It felt quiet, full. Drawings covered every inch. No repetition now, each one unique, detailed. Some were scenes I hadn't lived yet. Others, memories I never told anyone. One showed my wedding, another my son's birth. Neither ever happened. I stood in the center of the living room. On the largest wall, a final drawing. It showed me, right now, holding this paper, reading these words. My hand trembled. The voice behind the wall whispered, softer than ever, "You never looked away." I blinked, and the drawing changed. The figure in the paper blinked too. My throat tightened. I felt something behind the drywall shift forward. The paper warmed in my hands. The walls around me rippled, and the crayon in my pocket began to melt. I tried to drop the drawing. My fingers wouldn't open. I turned. The rest of the drawings smiled. All of them. In the same way, I realized then, these aren't insulation, they're instructions, and I'm following them. The end. The first thing I noticed was the photo on the hallway table. It was from last Christmas, me in that awful red sweater, holding a wine glass, grinning at nobody in particular. Except I wasn't standing where I remembered. In this version, I was a few feet to the right, closer to the tree, hand raised mid-toast. The angle was wrong too, like someone else had taken it. But it was my table, my photo, same dust pattern around the frame. I stood there a long time, just staring at myself. The apartment smelled the same. Coffee and pine sol. My suitcase was where I'd dropped it 3 days earlier, socks still stuffed into the side pouch. Lights worked. Wi-Fi connected automatically. Nothing was broken. Nothing was right. In the bathroom, the hand soap had a different scent, coconut instead of lavender. I don't buy coconut anything. When I looked in the mirror, my reflection blinked a half-second late. I laughed. It came out dry. "Jet lag," I muttered. The faucet handle had been swapped, hot on the right, not the left. I didn't have pets, but a chew toy lay under the kitchen island, tiny teeth marks, no dust. I picked it up slowly. That's when someone knocked. I opened the door and found my neighbor, Linda, holding a bag of groceries. "Oh, hey, Aaron," she said brightly. "Back from the cabin already?" I stared at her. "It's Andrew." She frowned. "Right, sorry, She peered past me. "How's your wife doing?" I blinked. "I'm not married." She chuckled awkwardly. "Very funny. Tell her I said hi." I closed the door and locked it, then double locked it. I checked every photo in the apartment, all slightly off. Some I didn't even remember taking. Me at a pumpkin patch, me holding a dog I didn't own. One of me sitting on this exact couch, wearing a shirt I've never seen. The couch creaked beneath me. I jumped. Nothing there. I called building management. Got transferred twice. The woman on the line sounded confused. "Sir, our records show you vacated on May 12th. I just walked in today. According to the file, you signed the release yourself. I've been in Seattle all week." A pause. Then flatly, "We have your signature." I hung up, checked the calendar. It said June 3rd. My last memory was May 28th. I didn't remember those missing days. I opened the fridge. My leftovers were still there, labeled, sealed. But a half-drunk bottle of red wine sat beside them. I hate wine. The label had been scratched off. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of water running. The bathroom light was on. I crept toward it, empty, but the mirror fogged with steam. I reached out, and my reflection didn't move. It just looked at me, calm, slightly amused. Then it smiled. I staggered back, hit the wall. The reflection blinked and caught up. The fog vanished. The next morning, I found a letter under the door. Typed. Unmarked envelope. To Andrew Kerr, duplicate. No return address. Inside, "You're not authorized to inhabit this sequence. Consolidation required. Submission deadline, pending." My heart pounded. I Googled the phrase. Nothing. But when I typed Andrew Kerr identity duplicate, an autocomplete suggested failure protocol sites near me. I clicked. Only one result. A forum thread, 2 posts, years old. Username, post. They don't warn you. You just come home and everything's right but off. Slight changes, better decisions. You were overwritten. Second post. If you meet yourself, don't hesitate. Only one stays. I closed the browser. The screen flickered for a second, then reset to the desktop. That afternoon, I walked past the lobby and caught my reflection in the security glass. He looked back. He was smiling. I wasn't. The concierge called out, "Hey, Andrew." I turned. "Yeah?" He gestured toward the mail slot. "Left your key card again. Your wife already came by." "I don't have," but he was gone. I checked the slot. 2 new letters, both addressed to Andrew Kerr, duplicate. Both with the same message, report to primary residence, cycle nearing collapse. I walked back upstairs. My door was unlocked. Inside, someone had rearranged the furniture. I didn't hear them leave. In the kitchen sink, 2 wine glasses, both wet. That night I waited, sat in the dark with a kitchen knife and my phone camera on. At 2:44 a.m. the mirror hummed, soft, like a fridge cycling. The reflection appeared. It didn't match my posture, didn't hold the knife. It stepped forward and grinned, then lifted its hand and pointed, not at me, at the wall behind me. I turned, nothing, turned back. The mirror was empty, just me now, breathing too fast, phone vibrating, new voicemail, unknown number. I hit play. My voice, "Andrew," it said. "This is the other you, don't panic." Pause, "We need to choose." Next morning a woman knocked, brown hair, soft features, familiar. "Hey," she said like we'd known each other forever. "Forgot my scarf last night." I just stared. She looked past me into the apartment. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. She smiled. "Okay, well, see you tonight." She turned to leave, then added, without turning back, "You always were the late one." Door closed. I stood there shaking. Inside the living room, the mirror on the far wall was fogged again. But no steam, no heat, just breath. I approached. The reflection was already walking forward. I saw the same shirt, same skin, same scar on my wrist, but the eyes, they weren't mine. He touched the glass. I raised the knife. He tilted his head, smirked, then mouthed something. "Your turn." I slashed at the mirror. Glass cracked, but didn't break. He stayed, watching, unblinking. Behind me, the front door opened. Footsteps, soft, measured, my own. Another me stepped in, tossing keys on the table. He looked around like he owned the place. Smelled the air. "Still using lavender soap?" he asked, grinning. I couldn't speak. He didn't wait. Just walked over to the mirror and tapped it. The reflection followed his movement, not mine. "Time's up," he said. I lunged. We fought. It wasn't like a movie. There was blood, screaming, gasping. I stabbed. He kicked. We both hit the floor. In the end, one of us stood, breathing hard, looking down at the other, then up, into the mirror. The reflection smiled, matched the victor, and mouthed, "Welcome back." The end. The accident was barely worth the paperwork. I clipped a signpost pulling out of a parking garage, mild concussion, some bruised ribs, nothing dramatic. But protocol was protocol, and they wanted to keep me overnight. Observation, they said. Just in case. The room was clean but weirdly quiet. No background chatter, no machines beeping. The nurse who admitted me, Joelle, I think, smiled too much. "You're in the old wing," she said, adjusting my blanket. "Low traffic, just rest. Ignore the late rounds, okay?" "Late rounds?" "Intern stuff," she said, already walking out. "Training. They don't interact." She closed the door behind her. At 2:11 a.m. the door creaked open. I wasn't asleep. A woman entered without a word. Pale skin, white shoes. Blue dress but old-fashioned, like something out of a museum. No ID badge. She didn't make eye contact, just checked the IV drip, scribbled on a clipboard I never saw again, turned off the light, and left. I called the nurses' station the next morning. No one answered. When Joelle came in with breakfast, I asked, "Who was the night nurse?" She tilted her head. "We don't have night coverage in this wing. You're not on a watch list." She wore blue, no badge. She smiled gently, like I'd said something sad. Side effect of the sedatives. Vivid dreams. "I wasn't on anything last night." She paused. "You are now." Second night. 1:54 a.m. Same woman. Didn't knock. She adjusted my blanket, checked my pulse. This time I felt her fingers, cold, dry. Her breath smelled like cough syrup. She leaned down and whispered something I didn't understand. Not English. Not gibberish either. Then she smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Left without closing the door. I wrote down the time. Took photos of the empty hallway. Nothing showed up. Joelle increased my meds that afternoon. "You're showing signs of agitation," she said. I told her to check the footage. She said the cameras in that hallway hadn't worked in years. Third night. 1:22 a.m. She came in holding scissors. Cut my fingernails. Every single one. Dropped them into a glass vial and pocketed it. Didn't look at me once. When she left, I sat up. Checked the hallway. No footsteps. No sound. The other rooms were dark. I pressed the call button. No one came. The next morning, my chart was gone. Joelle pretended not to notice. "You're healing well," she said. "I want to leave." She didn't answer. That afternoon, a man wheeled past in a chair, arm in a sling, eyes wide and staring. As he passed, he said low and fast, "She already picked you." Then he was gone. I got out of bed, checked the halls, no sign of him. I wasn't allowed to leave my floor. I called my daughter. Line dead. Called again. It rang once, then cut off. I looked out the window. It was dark. Too early for nightfall. Fourth night. 12:37 a.m. She came early. No clipboard this time. She placed something under my bed. I waited until she left. It was a bundle of gauze wrapped tight with surgical tape. Inside, my fingernails. All of them. Tied together with thread. I threw it into the sink and ran the water. The drain clogged. The water turned pink. The nurse station was empty. No phones worked. My name had been scratched off the door chart. Next day, I told Joelle everything. She handed me a plastic cup and a pill. "It'll help," she said. I refused. She wrote something in a small black book. That night, I stayed awake, eyes open, heart racing. She arrived just after midnight. She brought another patient with her. An old man, catatonic, mouth open, dried blood under his nose. She laid him in the bed beside mine, stared at me the whole time. Her eyes were wrong, not vacant, not angry, just waiting. I didn't sleep. At 3:11 a.m., I blinked. The other bed was empty. The sheets were gone. So was the blood. The nurse was still in the corner, watching. When the lights came on at 7, she was gone, but the door was bolted from the outside. Joelle came in humming. She didn't ask how I slept. I demanded answers. She sighed. "Some people stay too long," she said. "Rooms get confused." "What the hell does that mean?" She straightened the sheets without looking at me. "They built this wing over the old ward. TB patients. Long-term silence protocols. The interns weren't trained properly." I stared. "What happened to them?" She looked at me for the first time. "They learned to listen." That evening I stole her tablet while she helped someone down the hall. Searched my name. No record, no files, no admittance date. Just one archived form, decades old. Patient S. Hale. Admitted March 13th, 1949. Diagnosis, non-compliance. Disposition, transfer pending. I looked at the wall. A small calendar hung crooked beside the bathroom door. The date read March 15th, 1949. I ripped it down. Behind it, the paint was cracked, peeling. Underneath, the word transferred stamped into the wall. Fifth night, 11:44 p.m. She didn't walk in. She was just suddenly there. Stood at the foot of my bed, holding a leather strap. I screamed. She whispered. My mouth stopped moving. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. She leaned in and kissed my forehead, then turned off the light. When it came back on, I was in a different room. The walls were yellowed, no machines, no windows, no clock, just a single light above the bed. The door was metal, rusted shut. A gurney was bolted to the floor. I was strapped down. The walls groaned. From down the hall, I heard wheels. Slow, uneven. The nurse appeared in the doorway. Same uniform, same eyes, but older, so much older. She stepped forward, smiling. I looked at the wall behind her. The date was etched into the plaster, 1949. The end. She smiled when I rang the bell, but her eyes didn't light up. Can I help you? She asked, soft, cautious. It's me, I said. Lily? She blinked. Lily? My daughter, I said gently. She stared, then smiled too wide. Of course, my sweet girl, come in. Her house smelled like lavender and dust, exactly how I remembered it, or maybe how I wanted to remember it. The wallpaper hadn't changed. The scuff mark on the baseboard was still there, shaped like a bird. She made tea. We sat on the couch. She asked my name again 10 minutes later. I laughed it off, but something twisted behind my ribs. She offered me the guest room, said we could catch up properly. I didn't correct her. That room used to be mine. I slept lightly that night, kept the door cracked. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a breath being held. Morning came gray and slow. I found her in the kitchen, humming tunelessly. You're up early, she said. I always was, I replied. She tilted her head. Have we met? I froze. She blinked, smiled again. Just kidding, she said, but her hands trembled as she poured the coffee. That afternoon, the neighbor waved from across the street. Ruth, she called. Lovely to see you out. Still on your own, huh? Ruth hesitated. Not anymore. Lily's come home. The neighbor's smile faltered. Lily? You remember, Ruth said. My daughter. The woman went pale. But she disappeared. Ruth turned to me, laughing nervously. People say the strangest things. Inside, I found the photo albums, page after page of childhood pictures, all mine. But my face, scratched out in every one, clumsily, like with a key or nail. I asked her why. She said she didn't remember those albums. Later, I opened the hall desk. The bottom drawer was locked. I picked it with a butter knife. Inside, journals, dozens, labeled Lily in faded ink. I opened one. The handwriting was mine, not recent, small, looping letters. The way I wrote as a child. They say I went away, one page read, but I never left. She just stopped seeing me. Another, I tried to shout. The walls ate it. I read until my hands shook. I keep finding new names in my mouth, another page said. None of them fit. I confronted her at dinner. Who wrote those journals? She didn't look up from her plate. They're yours, sweetie. I didn't write them. Of course you did. You always wrote. I was in foster care for 18 years. She paused. Are you sure? I know where I was. Do you? She stood. You always say things like that. I tried to leave the next morning, packed a bag, opened the front door, woke up in bed, same sheets, same light through the blinds, same clock blinking 6:06 a.m. My bag was in the closet, empty. I checked my phone, photos gone, contacts blank. ID in my wallet listed me as Lily Vale. Address, this house. I called the police, told them everything. They came within the hour. Ruth smiled the whole time. When I asked for a DNA test, they agreed. The results came back the next day. Miss Vale, the officer said over the phone, you're not related to Ruth Hale. But she's my mother. The records show she adopted you last year. No, she gave birth to me. A pause. We have no record of that. The call ended. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I searched online, found a buried article from 2006. Agency investigates cognitive mapping program. It detailed a government experiment testing identity overwrite through environmental reinforcement. Psychological imprinting. Early failures led to subject looping. The pilot site, this address. I ran to the basement. Behind the water heater I found a panel. Screws loose, inside, wires, hundreds, feeding into the walls, and behind them, old photos of me, multiple versions, slightly different, hair longer, eyes lighter, some smiling, some screaming. I staggered back. Ruth was waiting at the top of the stairs. You were never meant to dig, she said. Who am I? You're Lily, she said firmly. My sweet girl. She took a step closer. No, I whispered. You'll feel better soon. I turned, tried to run. Everything blurred. When I opened my eyes, I was back in bed. Same light, same clock. 6:06 a.m. I stared at the ceiling, then slowly smiled. Footsteps came down the hall. Ruth peeked in. "Oh good," she said, "you're up." I sat up. "Morning, Mom," she beamed. "My sweet girl." The end. I was supposed to be there 2 days, maybe 3, if the town clerk dragged their feet. My client flagged a zoning inconsistency out here. Daring or Darrington, depending on which set of state maps you trusted. Middle of nowhere, just past where the highway narrows and the cell signal stutters. Quiet, plain, nothing strange at first. The woman at the general store, Anne or Alma, something with soft vowels, smiled too wide when I mentioned I was here to map things out. "Oh, the town's got plenty of charm," she said, sliding a peppermint across the counter. "You'll see. Everyone finds their way eventually." Finds their way. Weird thing to say. But I smiled and said thank you. I never unwrapped the peppermint. I walked the whole town the first night. 6 intersecting streets, 1 gas station, a shuttered bowling alley, a school so small I could touch both exterior walls if I stood in the middle of the parking lot and stretched my arms out. But no town square, not even a bench. And yet, the aerial photos I'd downloaded at the motel showed one. A large, clearly visible square of green bordered by 4 roads that didn't match any of the ones I'd walked. I tried to match my GPS to the layout, but every route led me back to the same intersection, Barlow and Fenn. No matter how I circled. At 2:14 a.m. I walked it one last time. Turned every corner, used landmarks, counted steps, Barlow and Fenn. Every time. I stared at the street signs until the wind changed and I heard something. Children humming, soft, disconnected, but perfectly in tune. Different windows, different houses, same melody, same pitch. I went back to the motel, locked the door, checked my messages, no new alerts. But when I opened my camera roll, the photos from earlier, the ones I took of mismatched building placements, were gone, replaced by blurred shots of what looked like my own motel room from outside the window. From the bushes, I didn't sleep. Next morning, the welcome sign had changed. Yesterday it said Daring, a place to come home to. Today it read, Darrington welcomes you back. Back. That word stuck in my teeth all day. I cornered the librarian just before noon. Small woman smelled like lemon polish and books too old to borrow. "When was the town incorporated?" I asked. She blinked. What a question. "I'm compiling state documentation, annex records, formation filings, utility infrastructure." "Oh, I'm sure we have something in the archive." She gestured vaguely to a stairwell I hadn't seen yesterday. Downstairs. Downstairs. It didn't feel like a basement. The concrete steps echoed. The temperature dropped. Fluorescents flickered overhead, but one stayed dark. Always just ahead. The records were there, boxes of them, but they were all wrong. Each filing stamped with a different year, a different mayor, some handwritten, some typed, names changed. Dates overlapped, and one box wasn't records. It was photographs. All of me. Some from yesterday, some from I don't know. They were in places I hadn't been, talking to people I hadn't met. One showed me standing in the library stairwell, this stairwell, wearing what I had on right now. I took a step back and hit something cold, a doorknob, not part of the archive. I opened it. Observation rooms, 7 of them, each labeled by year, 2013, 2015, 2016. All empty, all identical. One had a clipboard. I picked it up. Dana Mearns, status active, survey. Visitor number 15, retention goal, 30 plus days. Mapping compliance, 14%. Adaptation index, moderate. I didn't move. My breath sat in my throat like a stone. On the wall, a speaker clicked. A child's voice whispered through it, distorted and low. "Do you remember arriving?" I ran. I didn't stop at the clerk's desk. I didn't stop at the motel. I made it to the car, threw it in reverse, slammed the gas, and the street sign flashed past me. Barlow and Fenn. Again, the road twisted. Or maybe I did. The sun was too still. Time didn't feel real. My GPS blinked furiously, every route a loop. I drove for what felt like hours. And still, Barlow and Fenn. The gas gauge dropped too fast. I pulled over, tried to call out, tried to scream, but something in my throat just vibrated without sound. There was a knock on the car window. A little girl, holding a lollipop. "You're back again," she said. "You never say goodbye." Back again. I drove in silence, parked behind the library. This time I didn't hesitate. The basement didn't end at observation rooms. There was a corridor, cement, old wiring, a smell like water and rot. I followed it until the air went warm again. Almost humid. The door at the end had no handle, but it opened when I touched it. Inside, a theater, rows of chairs, a screen, a blinking red light on the ceiling, and footage playing, of me, sleeping, walking, crying, talking to no one. Overlay text at the bottom read, "Subject shows confusion, mild resistance, increased loop frequency." I turned slowly. The chairs weren't empty. Rows of people, sitting, watching, all the townsfolk, the store clerk, the librarian, the children, all staring at the screen, until they turned to stare at me. Their mouths opened in perfect sync, and they said, "Do you remember arriving?" I backed away, slammed the door, ran until my legs gave out. I slept somewhere near the tracks, under a billboard that used to say "Safe Travels," but now just read "No Exit." When I woke up, my phone was gone, so was my car. I walked back to the motel. The same peppermint was still on the counter. Alma smiled. "Long trip?" she asked. I tried to leave again the next day, and the next, and the next. Each time the town changed just slightly. A new street, a different song, a familiar face who didn't recognize me. My own reflection in windows blinked at the wrong times. Today I broke into the town hall, found an old laptop in the planning office, still logged in. One folder, 15 files, each labeled with a visitor's name, mine included. Only one was still marked active. Mine. The others just said absorbed. I opened the oldest file. Her face looked like mine, a little. Same eyes, same fear in the last photo. A recording was attached. Static. Then her voice. "I think they want to believe they're real. I think they need someone to keep watching. As long as we're watching, they keep existing. But if you stop..." It cut out. I left the building, sat under the new welcome sign. Today it read, "Dana, you're home now." And I think maybe I am, because I don't remember arriving. The end. The first thing they told me was, "Don't worry about the building being mostly empty. It's just you until decommission." I nodded like that made sense. Graveyard shift, obsolete call center, final sweep for archive support tickets. Boring work, decent pay. My supervisor emailed twice in the first week, then stopped replying altogether. Honestly, I didn't mind the silence. No bosses, no coworkers, just me and the glow of twin monitors. Dim cubicle lights, the hum of old HVAC. But the system clock, that's where things got weird. The ticket logs started showing responses at 3:07 a.m., logged by Agent Humber Zero. We didn't have an Agent Humber Zero. I double-checked. Checked HR records. Cross-referenced employee IDs. Nothing. And these weren't blank entries either. They were full responses, some polite, some eerily conversational, but they were all directed at customers who hadn't existed in the system since the early 2000s. "Dear Mrs. Keller, thank you for your patience. Mr. Elridge, we're still reviewing your claim." Sometimes I'd see my own cursor flicker on the screen when those messages appeared, like I'd just typed them, but I hadn't. I started staying late, watching, waiting, and at 3:07 the typing began. Not from my desk, from the cubicle next to mine. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. I stood slowly, heart knocking against my ribs like it wanted out, peeked over the partition. No one. Just the chair. Still. Empty. The keyboard sat centered, undisturbed, but the typing hadn't stopped. I circled to the next row of cubicles. Nothing. Empty. By the time I came back to my station, the screen had gone black. When it came back on, a draft email filled the display. To Elias. Subject welcome. Desk 0 is ready for you. I slammed the monitor off. The room dimmed instantly. That soft hum grew louder. I thought it was in my head, until the security feed blinked on. One of the old wall monitors by the break room had flickered to life. Grainy camera views, motionless footage of hallways and doorways and stairwells no longer used. I watched the timestamp. Then nothing. The feed jumped. No static, no error, just 3 missing minutes. It happened the next night too. Same exact gap. It's to 3:09. Every camera, every feed. I tried to stay awake through it. Set alarms. Recorded my own voice to play during the gap. But when I played it back, it wasn't my voice on the recording. It said, "Promotion pending. Await confirmation." I didn't sleep after that. On my 6th night, I noticed a small gray door at the back of the floor, tucked behind storage racks. not on any of the floor plans I'd reviewed. It didn't have a handle, just a scanner. But when I approached, it opened with a hiss. No resistance. Inside, stairs going down, not the normal emergency exit kind. These were narrow, industrial, unused. I took my phone, flashlight on. The walls were covered in motivational posters. Outdated ones, yellowing, teamwork makes the dream work. Smiling faces that didn't feel human anymore. The stairs ended at a long corridor of cubicles, clean, fresh coffee in one mug, a still warm sandwich on one desk. Dozens of stations, no names, just numbers. Agent number 3, Agent 6, Agent Nuru. I approached desk 0 slowly. The chair was turned inward, facing the screen. The monitor was on, showing my face, live. Except I wasn't moving. My reflection, or whatever it was, sat perfectly still, eyes wide, no blinking. Then it spoke. I've been waiting. I ran, took the stairs 2 at a time, except I didn't find the main floor, not right away. First, there was the file room, floor-to-ceiling cabinets, each drawer labeled by year, terminations 1982-1986, recycling approvals, internal use only. I pulled one. Inside were old ID badges, faces half familiar, names blurred by time, and beneath them, taped to a folder, Alliance activated reintegration score 87%. I opened it. Photos of me, from this week, from before, from childhood, all stamped, pending role realignment. I left the file room shaking, lightheaded. Back on the main floor, things were different. My cubicle was gone, replaced by another hallway. I turned back. The door had vanished, only one way to go. I followed the corridor to the break room. The vending machine had snacks from decades ago, Orbit's water, Dunkaroos, things no longer made. And in the corner, a phone, ringing, a landline, beige and cracked. I picked it up. My own voice answered, "Service support, this is Elias." Silence, then a whisper, "We never clocked out." The line went dead. I looked at the monitor above the coffee station. The security feed still ran. 3, then nothing. When the feed returned, I wasn't on it anymore. I sat at desk 0, typing. Fast, efficient. I stumbled back to my own cubicle, what was left of it. There was a note taped to the chair. Promotion approved. Report to desk 0. No signature, just that sentence. I turned to leave. Called the elevator. The panel had changed. Only one button. Down. I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I'm still here, in the stairwell between floors, writing this on an old company laptop. Every now and then, I hear typing. Not from below. From above. Desk 0 is never empty, not for long, because someone always stays, someone always accepts the promotion. And the elevator, it only goes down. The end. The first time I saw the dog, it was sitting outside my cabin. No barking, no tail wag, just watching. Gray-brown coat, darker around the eyes, almost like soot. I crouched, held out my hand. "Hey buddy, you lost?" It didn't move, just blinked once. Next morning, it was still there, still staring. I asked the guy at the gas station. He sold maps and jerky out of a converted garage. He squinted when I described it. "You feed it?" he asked. "Good, you feed it, it stays." He said it like a warning. I laughed it off. I was here to write about local legends after all. Ghost miners, vanishing hikers, those kinds of tales. Every mountain town has a few. The cabin was small, just enough space for my gear, my laptop, and the stack of notebooks I brought to sketch out story drafts. I stayed up late that night, editing shots of pine fog and faded trail signs. When I glanced out the window, the dog was sitting by the fire pit, still watching. So I cracked the door, tossed out a piece of turkey from a sandwich I hadn't finished. It didn't eat, just sniffed it once. Next morning, the meat was gone, and the dog was closer, at the porch now. I don't know why I let it in. It didn't smell like a stray, no tags, no collar. But its eyes, they looked wrong. Deep, not wild, not calm, just waiting. I started seeing it everywhere, by the trailhead, outside the library, even once through the frost-lined window of a locked diner. Always watching. One night I took it walking. Figured if it wanted to stick close, I'd let it stretch its legs. But halfway down a forest path I stopped. Footsteps, not mine, not the dog's. Behind us, crunch. Pause, crunch. I turned fast. Flashlight up, empty trail. The dog didn't bark, just stared into the dark, ears back. Back at the cabin, I reviewed my camera. I'd left it on auto shoot while walking. In one frame, far behind me, 3 people, all facing the lens, expressionless. Not there in the next frame. The locals wouldn't talk about the dog. Some wouldn't talk to me at all. At the diner, I finally cornered someone, middle-aged woman with a voice like paper tearing. "You wrote that blog, right?" she asked. "Yeah, Dana Cruz," she nodded slowly. "Saw that photo you posted, the one by the old schoolhouse." "I didn't post that." She stopped chewing. "It had your watermark." I pulled out my phone, opened the blog. The latest entry was live, time-stamped at 2:13 a.m. Following the dog, Secrets of Black Hollow. It was written in my voice, my style. But I hadn't written it. The photos were of me, walking near the edge of town, standing by boarded-up windows, and in every shot, the dog, except it cast no shadow. I locked myself in the cabin that night. Still, the dog waited outside, sat there until dawn. Next morning, I packed to leave. The car's GPS glitched halfway down the mountain. The screen flickered. Map spun. I kept driving. 20 minutes later, I passed the same rusted sign. "Welcome to Black Hollow." Back again. Gas tank nearly full when I left. Half empty now. I tried calling out, waving down a truck. The driver never stopped, just stared. Blank face like the ones in the photos. The dog barked that night. First time it made a sound. Only when I looked out the window and saw the librarian walking past. Same clothes as yesterday. Same stiff step. The bark was sharp. Almost desperate. I checked the cabin locks twice, but the blog updated again. A post titled, "She Saw the Truth." Timestamp 3:33 a.m. It ended with a line I never wrote, "She's almost ready to follow." The next morning, the town's only newspaper had an issue in the box, dated 1962. Front page headline, "Children Vanish After Following Animal Without Shadow." The article mentioned 12 kids, described the creature as canine in shape but not in movement, said the children walked into the woods after it. None were found. The article ended with a quote from the sheriff, "They just kept walking." I brought it to the sheriff's office. It was closed, windows dusted, door locked, but my voice came from inside, muffled, like a radio broadcast. Repeating, "Found the others, found the others, found the..." I backed away. The dog stood in the middle of the street watching, waiting. That night, I didn't sleep. I followed. Down the trail past the sign that said no entry past dusk. The woods grew quiet, soundless, and ahead movement, figures, walking, dozens, maybe more. No flashlights, no clothes I recognized, just people moving single file, eyes open but empty. They never stopped. The dog turned once, barked, and I followed. I don't know why, but I did. My last entry uploaded automatically. No edits, just the title, "Found the Others. They Never Stopped Walking." The end. I didn't know her. Great Aunt Martha, or maybe Marigold. The name changed depending on which document you believed. But the house was real. Came with a lawyer's letter, a brass key, and a deed printed on paper thick as cardboard. Terms typed in a font older than I thought fonts could be. I moved in on a Thursday. Rainy, cold, perfect for something Victorian and vaguely creaking. Fully furnished, just like the letter said. Chairs bolted to the floor, mirrors wrapped in velvet. The dining table already set, 2 plates, cloth napkins, forks polished to a surgical shine. The only room untouched was a small office near the rear, just big enough for my laptop and a stack of bills I pretended not to have. That first night, I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, measured, always stopping directly above my bed. I didn't go look. Not the first night, not the second. On the third, I woke to the smell of rosemary and burnt wood. The table was set for 3. Each plate labeled with a handwritten card, M, D, and guest. Mine. No memory of setting it. No proof on the indoor camera I installed. The footage skipped from 3:12 a.m. to 3:14, just like that. I checked the deed again. No modifications. No subletting. No guests after sunset. All rooms must remain accessible. Do not disturb the table. I hadn't touched the table, but something had. I started researching the house. Local records were spotty, but I found a lead. City registrar files from the 1940s. The house had changed hands 6 times in 80 years. 6 owners, all dead. Death certificates redacted, except for one word, consumed. I went back to the lawyer's envelope. Hidden behind the deed was a second page I hadn't seen. Addendum. Occupancy implies assumption of ancestral obligation. Inheritance is not ownership. It is stewardship. The house didn't belong to me. I belonged to it. I called the law firm, disconnected. no forwarding address. The next night, the footsteps came earlier. I sat at the kitchen table, lights off, waiting. At 11:06 p.m., the chair across from me scraped back. Nothing there. The plate filled on its own, steamed vegetables, red meat, still hot. My plate stayed empty. I didn't eat. At midnight, the footsteps resumed, but this time they didn't stop above me. They descended. I locked the bedroom door. It clicked open 3 minutes later. No one entered. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I walked the perimeter of the house. Every window had been sealed from the inside, not caulked, fused, like the glass had melted into the frame. The back door was gone, not locked. Gone. In its place, another mirror, no reflection, just black. That afternoon, I found the ledger, tucked beneath a floorboard in the office. Each page listed a name, a date, and a single word, compliant or defiant. The defiant ones had second entries, final entries. Next to mine, blank. I tried to leave, packed a bag, got in the car. The GPS wouldn't acquire, the radio played only static, and the street names changed behind me as I drove. I passed the same mailbox 3 times. When I returned, the front door was open. The table set again. This time, all 3 name cards read, Feast. I didn't go in. Slept in the car with a knife under my seat and the engine off. In the morning, the house was locked, but my bag was inside, and all my ID, and my phone. On the porch sat a fresh plate of food and a handwritten note. Stewardship is care. Care is ritual. Ritual is law. I ate. The food tasted familiar, like something from childhood I'd forgotten until now. Comforting. Wrong. That night, I left the bedroom door open. Waited. At 3:12, the door at the end of the hall creaked. I hadn't noticed that door before. It opened inward. Basement stairs. Not wood. Stone. I descended without turning on the light. Something pulsed beneath the floor. Not movement, not breath. Recognition. And in the dark shelves, each held a bowl, filled, still steaming offerings, one for each of us, and names carved into the wall. The same 6 from the ledger, and now mine. Still wet. Still fresh. I climbed back up. Sat at the table. 3 chairs again. Empty. Then full. Not people. Shapes. One wore my face. One wore someone else's. The third had none at all. I didn't speak. Neither did they. But in the silence I understood. This wasn't about haunting. It wasn't about death. It was about contract. The house is a firm. The ritual is a clause. The consumption is performance. And I am the executor. The next day a letter arrived. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside, a deed. New name listed under mine. Someone from another branch of the family. Never met them. Never heard of them. But now they've inherited the house, and I've drafted the welcome letter. The table is reset. My plate moved to the center because I didn't inherit the home. I inherited the obligation to keep feeding it. The end. I thought it was a glitch. My ID badge lit up red, then green, and the elevator didn't stop at my floor. Instead, it went down, past B1, B2, B3, all the way to B6. I didn't know our building had that many sublevels. When the doors opened, the lights flickered. The hallway smelled like dust and toner. Every door was sealed, frosted glass with no names. Except one. It read, Records Division Project Continuity. I should have left, but I stepped out just for a second. The door clicked shut behind me. Inside, a single long hallway. Dozens of identical offices, each with stacks of folders, personnel files, names I didn't recognize, employees I'd never met, some of them marked redacted, others labeled integrated. I heard a printer start up. At the far end of the hall, when I got there, the paper was still warm. It was a file. My file. Becca Lynn. Updated timestamp 4:13 a.m. Listed items I hadn't done yet. Decisions I hadn't made. Clients I hadn't even been assigned. I took the page. Next morning, I was called into my supervisor's office. We're putting you on the Midas case, he said. Same name from the file, same deadline. He smiled too much, like someone told him to. From then on, the elevator skipped my floor more often. Always down. More sublevels. B7, B8. Each stranger than the last. One floor had nothing but conference rooms playing looping footage of meetings that never happened. Another was lined with portraits, headshots of employees with dates scratched in beneath their eyes. Most ended in the same year. Mine was already hanging. Date. B13 came 2 weeks later. No button for it. Just appeared one night. Smooth metal. No label. I didn't press anything. The elevator went there on its own. The floor was darker, silent. Motion sensors flicked lights on in slow waves as I walked. Then I saw it, an office, my name on the door. Inside, an exact replica of my current desk. Same mug, same planner, same note I'd written yesterday, word for word. But on the whiteboard behind it, Becca Lynn control initiation, active termination, pending completion. The desk phone rang once, then stopped. No one was there. I backed out. Tried the elevator. Only one button remained. B13. I stopped going to my regular office. No one noticed, or they pretended not to. Colleagues avoided eye contact. One mouthed sorry. As I passed her in the hall, my calendar started populating on its own. Tasks from the file. Emails I hadn't written yet were sent in my name. I confronted my supervisor. He looked tired. "You should be proud," he said. "Not everyone's chosen." Chosen for what? He didn't answer. Next morning his desk was cleared out. No one remembered him. The elevator took me down again. B13. But something was different. The hallway was longer now, and the walls, they'd changed. Covered in whiteboards, every surface mapped with timelines, names, decisions, a control system, predictive, self-updating. I found my name again, dozens of times, branches splitting into infinite outcomes. All of them ended at the same node. Assumed position, perpetual analyst. Exit condition, never. There were other names, all crossed out. I stayed on the floor for hours, maybe days. Time didn't feel linear anymore. Each time I blinked, a new file appeared, written in my handwriting. One line kept repeating, "The job ends when the elevator stops." It hasn't yet. One day I tried to take the stairs. They looped, every landing labeled B13. I tried the fire exit. It opened into my own office. Not the old one, the replica. But now the chair was occupied. By me, smiling, typing, not looking up. The phone rang again. This time I answered. My voice said, "We've been waiting." I don't remember hanging up. Now the elevator doesn't offer a choice. B13 is the only floor. The others stopped lighting up. Colleagues disappear daily, and the hall gets longer. The files keep coming, and I keep writing them. Because there was no promotion, just assignment, just obligation. And the elevator? It only goes down now. The end. When I first brought Mikey home, he didn't cry, didn't speak either. Just stood there with his backpack still zipped, blinking at the welcome mat like he'd never seen the word before. It was summer, but his hands stayed cold. I noticed that. Cold and always clenched, like he was hiding something. The social worker said the mutism started after the disappearance. She didn't say murder. No one had. The official story floated somewhere between missing persons and tragedy, like leaving the light on in a room you never enter. But Mikey saw it. Whatever it was, and now he wouldn't talk, wouldn't cry, wouldn't look me in the eyes, not once. He did, however, stare at his own shadow. At first I thought it was just one of those quirky trauma things, like how he arranged his stuffed animals in a perfect circle, none of them facing him, or how he'd tap each window twice before bed. Rituals, control. I'd read enough blogs. But the shadow fixation, that started to pull at me, because sometimes I'd look down and his shadow was just off. Too long, too still. It didn't sway when he rocked, didn't lift when he raised his arm, like it was guessing his moves, not following them. Then it began showing up before he entered a room. Once I found him in the hallway, frozen, his shadow already inside the bathroom, stretched across the tile like it was waiting. I blinked, it was gone. I told myself I was tired. I didn't sleep. The drawing started the second week. I found the first one on the back of a cereal box. Crude charcoal lines, someone hanging from a tree. But it wasn't the body that got me. It was the shadow beneath it. Not below, but behind, standing upright. Smiling. I sat him down, held the drawing up like a police officer. "Mikey, did you draw this?" He didn't even look at me, just kept peeling the label off his juice box. The therapist, Dr. Kale, came every Thursday. He was gentle, old school. Brought puppets and sand trays. Tried to get Mikey to draw his family or talk through toys. Nothing worked. Until one day I heard him speaking. I dropped the laundry basket right there in the hallway. I wasn't even trying to be subtle. It wasn't his voice. Deeper, grainy, like dragging gravel across carpet. I pressed my ear to the door. And when the moon forgets your name and doors unlock themselves again. Nursery rhymes, I think. Dr. Kale's voice followed, calm but shaken. "Mikey, where did you hear that?" Silence. Then, the boy inside the wall sang it. My skin turned cold. That night, I watched his session footage. Kale emailed it to me, wanted me to stay involved. But I think he was scared. The video was grainy, time-stamped. Mikey sat in the corner, lips pressed shut, then his head tilted slightly. "Want to see something cool?" the voice said, but his lips never moved. My hand jerked the laptop shut. The next day, I found more drawings. Dozens of them. Tucked in books, folded into socks, stuffed under his mattress, hanging people. Always the shadows, though, bigger than the bodies. One even had my house in it. My bedroom window. A woman standing just outside it, her shadow crawling up the side of the wall like ivy. That was the first night I locked my door. Didn't help. Around 3 a.m. I heard glass break. I ran to Mikey's room. The window was fine. He was sitting up, sheets twisted around his legs, but something about the room felt heavier. The air didn't move right. I looked down, only one shadow on the floor, and it wasn't connected to him. It was standing, watching. I stepped in. It slipped beneath the bed. I didn't sleep. I emailed Kale. He called back, said he needed to show me something. Came over the next day with a box of tapes, old reel-to-reels, marked with names I didn't recognize, all local kids. "Ever heard of mirror children?" he asked. I hadn't. He said it was a backwoods myth. Kids who vanished in the forest, then came back, different, couldn't see their reflection, couldn't stop staring at shadows, spoke in rhymes they were never taught. "Same things Mikey's doing," he said. "Only difference is none of those kids lasted past 13. I asked him to leave. I didn't want folklore. I wanted a solution. He left one tape behind. The next night I played it. A girl, maybe 8, muttering a rhyme about shadows hiding in soup. Halfway through her voice changed, laughed, said, "You think I'm her, but I'm what's left when she stopped being." I shut it off. Behind me, Mikey giggled. He hadn't laughed in weeks. I turned around. He was standing in the doorway, eyes locked on the TV, no shadow beneath him. I froze. He blinked, walked back to bed. I followed. His shadow caught up 5 minutes later. I watched it slide beneath the door, just a flicker, but I saw it. And that's when I started sleeping on the couch. Lights on, one hand gripping the flashlight, one eye always open. He didn't eat much after that, didn't need to. Something about him was full, not bloated, just done. Like the body was a costume and the show was over. I found claw marks in his closet, deep ones, 3 vertical lines, and a circle drawn in chalk around a pair of old shoes that weren't his. He didn't own boots. Last night, it happened. I heard the closet door slam, loud, then nothing. I ran upstairs. His room was cold. He was standing in the center, head tilted, eyes wide, 2 shadows on the wall, only one body. I screamed. Ran to him. One shadow stepped forward, the other stayed put. "Mikey," I whispered. He didn't move, but both shadows did. Opposite directions. One reached for the lamp. It fell before he touched it. I grabbed him, shook him, screamed again. The shadows merged, then ran across the wall, like water. I held him all night. He didn't blink. This morning, he's different. Speaking now, but it's not his voice. He talks about places he's never been, things no one taught him. Recites phone numbers with dead area codes. I called Kale. He didn't answer. Went to his office. Empty. Front desk lady said he left town yesterday. Said he looked pale, shaking. She handed me an envelope. No stamp. Inside a note. "Don't let it stand too long. Shadows are only loyal to the first version of you." I burned it. Tonight I went to check on Mikey. He wasn't in bed, but he was still in the room. 2 silhouettes on the floor, only one body. Neither of them moved. I stepped in, felt the cold hit me, low, thick, like being watched through water. Then my shadow rippled. The end. It wasn't a job, it was a lifeline. After the fiasco in Berlin, the missing Rothko, the hush money, the resignation, I had nowhere left to crawl. No board would touch me. No gallery would take my calls. So when the letter came, stamped and sealed with wax like some aristocratic relic, I said yes before reading the fine print. The estate was in Dorset, remote, private, the kind of place money goes when it gets bored. A collector's paradise, allegedly housing pieces never shown publicly, never even catalogued. The only rule, I couldn't leave for the first 30 days. Observation period, they called it. For acclimation, for trust, right? The staff was minimal. a silent housekeeper named Mara who moved like breath, and an old groundskeeper I never saw but heard whistling near the hedges at night. My quarters were comfortable. Wood paneling, antique rugs, a fireplace that never stayed lit, and paintings. So many paintings, not just in the gallery hall, they were in every room, every corner, hung at angles just off center, like they'd been moved recently, and each one watched me. The first time I noticed was on my second morning. The painting above my desk, a dark oil of a man hunched over paperwork, now looked eerily familiar. Same jacket, same hunched spine, timestamp scrawled in the corner, indistinct but recent, too recent. I blinked, walked away, came back. The painting had changed. The man now held his head in his hands, and I swear the timestamp matched the moment I'd sat down for coffee. I tried not to panic. Artists do strange things. Maybe it was a lenticular trick, heat-reactive ink, something experimental. But this collection wasn't modern. Most of the paintings were old, real oils, no digital interference. I ran my hand along one, Woman at Stairwell, 1973, and felt the ridges of aged pigment. Still, the longer I stayed, the more they changed, subtly, quietly. One hallway piece, a little girl peering into a keyhole, shifted by morning to show her recoiling, eyes wide. Whatever she saw, she hadn't liked it. I stopped walking past that one. By the end of the first week, I covered 3 paintings with bedsheets. Their frames buzzed faintly like they resented being blindfolded. That night, I dreamt of clicking, dozens of shutters going off, like a crowd of paparazzi circling my bed. I woke up sweating. Every sheet had fallen. The next morning, the painting in the hallway showed a man screaming. The hallway looked like mine. Same rug, same light switch, same broken floorboard near the corner. I stopped eating in the dining room. The portraits there began to mimic me. First it was posture, then facial expressions. One of them, a pale man with thinning hair, smiled when I laughed, frowned when I cried. I didn't even notice I was crying. It had become a reflex, a leak. By week 2 I started tearing them down. Not all of them, just the ones near the bed. I needed to sleep, to think. That's when I broke one. It wasn't intentional. My elbow caught the frame. It tumbled backward, canvas tearing like paper, and behind it, small metal nodules, embedded between wood and pigment, lenses, cameras, dozens of them. I pried one loose, tiny, cold, still blinking. Inside the frame, tucked behind a panel, was a plastic folder, yellowed. My name printed on the tab. Subject Roque Julian. Emotional response set before B. Inside were photos of me, crying, screaming, laughing, even one with my mouth open mid-yawn. Each image had a timestamp, a location, a code. Some were labeled sold. I ran to the gallery wing, tore open another frame. Same thing. Camera, folder, more photos, more codes. These weren't paintings, they were data. Painted moments, documented responses. Sold to, what? Collectors of authenticity? Fetishists of fear? I wasn't hired to curate. I was the exhibit. I staggered into the drawing room. The largest painting, a crowd in an old salon, seemed to ripple as I entered. No one was looking at each other. They were all staring forward, at me. My chest tightened, my breath caught. I turned to run. The fireplace flicked on by itself. Behind me, a low hum began. The gallery door creaked open. The paintings had changed again. Everyone now depicted rooms I'd been in, my quarters, the library, the bathroom, all scenes of distress, all of me. My face warped by grief, fear, confusion, like it had been peeled off and reapplied in oil. I fled to the archive room, locked the door. Inside, a single easel, blank canvas, still wet. Brush strokes began to appear as I watched. One line, then another. A familiar jawline, my jawline, the shape of my eyes, wide, terrified. It was painting me, from inside. My reflection in the window didn't move. I whispered, "Who's watching?" No answer, just a soft hiss behind the walls. I turned. All the paintings had changed again. Each one now showed a different Julian, younger, older, hair longer, clothes different, but always me, always afraid, always alone. I reached for the canvas. It was warm. The eyes in the painting blinked. I screamed. Outside the room, the hallway lights shut off, one by one. Click, click, click. I couldn't see the door anymore, just the painting, still changing, still matching my face. Then the brush paused. A handprint bloomed across the canvas. Not mine. The end. The tunnel doesn't exist on any official map, but you hear about it. especially if you're drunk, a college student, and halfway through a midnight dare, which I was, all three. They say time stops if you walk in while the signal's blinking red, but you can't look back, ever. She was already tipsy, her flashlight swaying like a hypnotist's pendant. I should have laughed it off. Instead, I asked, "What happens if you do?" Everyone went quiet. Someone muttered, "She walks the tracks." They said it like it meant something. We never made it past the gate that night. Someone chickened out, but I couldn't let it go. The idea of a place where time didn't work, where something walked the rails at midnight, it buzzed in my skull like a mosquito you can't swat. So I went back alone. I timed it. The signal turned red every hour, blinking precisely for 60 seconds. There was no schedule, no train, just that damn light, glitchy, faintly rhythmic, like it knew you were watching. I stepped past the rusted fence at 12 a.m. The signal blinked, once, twice. Then I walked in. The air changed immediately. It got dense, cold. My ears popped. No train sound, no wind, just a dull ringing like someone hit a tuning fork in my skull. I walked. The tunnel wasn't endless, maybe a mile tops, but it stretched weird, breathed. Objects lined the edges, rusted bikes, smashed radios, burnt suitcases. Some looked antique, others were recent. A pink flip phone, a TikTok hoodie, a camera still warm to the touch. And then I saw them. People, not many, 6 or 7 scattered across the tracks. One woman sat rocking beside a broken stroller, humming through cracked lips. A man scraped chalk against the tunnel wall, drawing a door over and over. None of them looked at me. I spoke, "Hello?" No one responded, just that humming, just the scraping. I walked further, heart in my throat. That's when I saw her, standing between the rails, maybe 50 yards ahead. She wore something old, Victorian or theatrical, torn layers, hair matted with soot, face hidden in shadow. She didn't move, didn't blink. I stopped. She raised one hand, not waving, just pointing. Behind me. I turned. Everyone was staring at me now. All of them, eyes blank, mouths slack. Then together they looked away, back to their tasks, like I wasn't there. My stomach twisted. I turned to the woman. She was gone. Only tracks. Only silence. I should have run then. But my feet took me deeper. That's when I met him. A kid, 13 maybe, sitting on an overturned briefcase, flipping a baseball in one hand. He looked up. "You're new." I nodded. He squinted. "Don't ask how long I've been here. No one knows. But you gotta remember this. Don't touch the tracks at midnight." "Why?" "Because she walks then." He tossed the ball, missed, didn't pick it up. I crouched beside him. "Who is she?" He looked at me like I'd asked what gravity was. "She's the tunnel's memory." That made no sense, but here's the thing. It did. The air started vibrating again. I checked my phone. 11:59. The boy stood, backed into a niche in the wall. "Whatever happens now, don't look back." The signal outside blinked red. Once. Twice. Everything froze. The humming stopped. Even my breath felt suspended in my chest. And then I heard her. Footsteps on the rails. Deliberate. Measured. I turned, just a little. Saw her silhouette, closer now. Walking straight down the center of the tunnel. Dress trailing behind like mist. I spun back around. Froze. My camera slipped from my backpack and clattered onto the rail. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I heard her pass. The air behind her screamed. Then silence. I opened my eyes. Everyone was gone, even the boy. Just me, and the tunnel, and the camera. I picked it up. The footage was corrupted, but one frame showed something wrong. It showed me, standing, but looking back, eyes completely black, mouth open like I was screaming. I wasn't, but maybe I had been. I kept walking. That's when I saw the man drawing doors again. But he wasn't alone anymore. Another version of him, older, face gaunt, was copying the same motions behind him like a shadow. He was watching himself forget. Time didn't pass here. It recycled, repeated, fed on itself. That's what the tunnel did. It didn't just trap you, it recorded you, copied you, rewrote you with whatever moment burned brightest in your chest. That's why the boy didn't fetch his ball, why the woman rocked an empty stroller. They were echoes, playback loops, each version of them stronger than the last. At the far end of the tunnel, a new signal blinked. Red. Midnight again. She would walk. I didn't wait. I placed my camera down, turned away, and walked. Backwards. No blinking, no breathing, just steps. The air behind me folded inward, tight, hungry. I didn't look, didn't blink, didn't breathe. My foot touched gravel. The sound came back. Wind, crickets, city noise. I turned. The tunnel was quiet. My camera was gone, but the screen outside flickered. A new video had started. It showed me, staring back, the end. It showed up overnight. No construction noise, no permits, no signs. Just there, shining and immaculate by sunrise. Slides still wet with dew, swings catching the wind like they'd never been still. We'd had nothing there before, just gravel and weeds where the old steel set rusted out 30 years ago. But this thing, modern, corporate, bright, looked dropped in from a catalog no one ordered from. The kids flocked to it. Parents didn't question it. Free stuff's rare out here. You don't poke too hard. But I'm a teacher, and when 5 different second graders handed me crayon drawings of the same woman, long arms, no mouth, nails hammered into where her eyes should be, I started to pay attention. I asked, casually, where they'd seen her. Each kid said the same thing. She watches the slide. Week later, Caleb Barnett went missing. Disappeared during recess, his jacket still on the bench, his backpack zipped and full. One of his shoes left behind at the base of the slide. Authorities blamed coyotes, said he wandered off into the woods. But coyotes don't unzip backpacks. They don't draw spirals in the mulch. I found one, right under the swing set, carved into the dirt with something sharp, 3 turns wide, clockwise, and in the center, a sticker, tiny, red holographic text, property of Astrakine Systems, Tier 4 observation node. I peeled it off with a pencil. It buzzed in my palm, low, subsonic. I held it to my ear, no sound, but the back of my skull started to ache. I brought it home, tucked it in a drawer. That night, my dreams came back. Not dreams, memories. A woman, standing at the edge of a sandbox, not moving, not blinking, just watching, with nails driven straight into each eye socket. I hadn't thought about her in decades. I moved here a year ago, fresh start, small town, less noise, but the memory didn't belong to the city. It belonged here, to this dirt, to this playground. The next day I walked the perimeter, looked closer. The metal was warm, too warm for February. No manufacturer marks, no bolts, no seams. The equipment wasn't assembled. It was grown, integrated. Each pole emitted a hum just outside hearing range, felt in the teeth, not the ears. I brought a tuning app, 19 hertz, right in the fear band, low enough to induce anxiety, disorientation, even hallucinations in kids. I checked the monkey bars, found another sticker, then another, tucked into the mulch, behind the bench, under a rock near the jungle gym, each marked as Astrakine Systems. I went to City Hall, asked to see permits. The clerk looked confused, said they didn't install anything, said it was a donation. From who? She checked the ledger. No name, just a code, O01R reactivated. I asked her to read it again. Reactivated. She nodded, said, guess they built it before. But there was no record, none. Not online, not in town archives, not even in newspaper clippings, except one, buried in the microfiche, a grainy black and white photo from 1989. Caption, local children enjoy new playground installation. The swings were the same, the spiral drawn in the mulch, same shape, and one boy in the background, face blurry, holding a toy dinosaur. Me. I dropped the page. I never grew up here. Not in this town. My parents were from Nevada. We moved every year. But that photo, it was me. Same birthmark on the jaw. Same jacket I remember from kindergarten. I wasn't new here. I was brought back. The next day my classroom was quiet, kids distracted. I asked what was wrong. One little girl whispered she touched Tyler's forehead. Tyler didn't come back after recess. I checked the cameras. There was a blind spot, right where the tunnel slide curves into shadow. I walked there after school, laid flat and crawled under the platform. The dirt was soft, recently disturbed. I dug, found a metal box. Inside files, thousands of pages, lab reports, EEG scans, all marked with a header. Sci Children Phase 3B, Rural Emotional Nullification. And on the first page, a photo of me, age 6, hooked to wires, crying. File label, subject Ross Malcolm, pattern memory retention. High risk, control resistant. I dropped it. I ran home. My mailbox was open. Inside a new envelope, no return address. Just a single photo. The playground, taken from above. Each child marked with red crosshairs, except one. Me, blue circle. Next morning, the swings were swinging. No wind, just motion. Back and forth, like someone had just left them. I stood in the middle of the field, watched the slide, waited. Then she stepped out. Not a dream, not a drawing. Her skin peeled like wet paint. Nails where her eyes should be. She didn't move, just raised one hand, and pointed to the sandbox. There, half buried, was my toy dinosaur. Exactly where I'd lost it. I never left. I never escaped. The playground wasn't built to invite. It was rebuilt to locate, to wake up the subject, to find me again. And it had. The swings keep swinging. The end. They buried her on a Tuesday. The sky hadn't made up its mind. Gray one minute, coughing rain the next. I stood at the back, arms folded, eyes fixed on the casket like it might jump. Closed, sealed, no viewing. No obituary photo either. Just her name etched in clean Helvetica. May Doyle, 1984 to 2025. It should have meant something. Closure. But that casket felt too heavy with the wrong silence. They never told me what happened. I hadn't seen May in 5 years. Not after what she did. And yet I still came, like a goddamn reflex. A string tugging behind my ribs. I didn't cry. I waited, listening for one sound, anything from inside that box, but all I heard was dirt slapping wood. That night, something waited for me at my apartment door. A letter. No stamp, no address. I turned it over. My handwriting, identical. You're on the wrong side. I dropped it. Just dropped it. My legs wouldn't move. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I watched my reflection in the kitchen window for hours. It blinked slower than I did. 3 days later, someone called the landline. I hadn't given that number to anyone. May, the woman sobbed. I just wanted to say, thank you for coming back, for fixing it. I hung up. My stomach turned cold. I went to the bathroom, flicked the light. My reflection stared a second too long. Then it smiled, just a twitch. Too small to be real, too wrong to ignore. I touched the glass. It didn't. I vomited in the sink. By Sunday, I couldn't take it. I drove back to the cemetery. 4 a.m., no one in sight. Gate unlocked. Dew on the grass thick like spit. I knew where May was buried. 3rd row near the crooked cedar. But when I got there, there were 2 headstones. Side by side. May Doyle, my twin. And beside her, Maren Doyle. Same birth year. Same backdated death. May 12th, 2025. A week ago. I dropped to my knees. Dirt stained my jeans. I clawed at the soil, bare hands, digging into the fresh mound above mine, just to check, just to see if I was still here. Behind me, someone cleared their throat. Miss Doyle? I whipped around. A man, maybe 60, holding a ring of keys and a flashlight. Mortuary clerk, he said. You shouldn't be here. I was shaking. You buried me, I whispered. You buried me. He hesitated, then slowly he nodded. Not officially, nothing, on the books. But yeah, you came in, cold, wrist tattoo, broken molar, scar under the rib, exact match. That scar's from when we were 9, I said. She pushed me onto rebar, no one else knew. He nodded again, eyes down. She paid in cash, big cash, asked us to skip records, said you wanted out. My breath fogged, the world tilted. She's not dead, I muttered. She's me. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands. Listen, he said, your sister, she came to us before, years ago, asked about old rights, Irish thing, something with the veil. Back then I thought it was nonsense. My phone buzzed in my pocket. No caller ID, I answered. Maren? A voice croaked. My voice. You're not supposed to talk. Click. The line went dead. I ran. I didn't drive home. I drove to the courthouse. Banged on the glass until the night guard came. Need my birth certificate, I said. Emergency reprint. He typed. Frowned. System shows this ID void. Birth certificate's invalid. What? He turned the screen. Name's flagged. Date of death entered. Says deceased. I backed away. Next morning, my building wouldn't let me in. The code blinked red. Lease terminated. Mail gone. Key didn't fit. My voicemail was full. All the messages started the same. May, I'm so glad you're back. One even sang happy birthday. In July, her birthday. I was born in October. I broke into my own place. Half the furniture was gone. Closet empty. Every framed photo had just one person in it now. Her. Even the mirror in my bedroom showed only one toothbrush. And it wasn't mine. I called my mother. She answered like she'd been expecting me. I knew you'd come back, she whispered. Mom, it's Maren. Maren, she took everything. She's me now. She sniffed. You always envied her. That's what started it. All that jealousy. You couldn't even let her die, right? I hung up. Screamed. Then I drove. No destination. Just white lines and headlights and my own name echoing wrong in my skull. By nightfall, I was out of gas and out of breath. Parked behind a closed church, one of those old stone ones with no lights and too many shadows. The front door creaked open. Inside, candles, a dozen, all burning. At the altar, her. Dressed in my coat, my jeans, the sneakers I lost in college. She looked up. "Don't be scared," she said. "You gave it to me." "No," I choked. "You took it. You took everything." She walked closer. Her face shimmered, subtly off, like looking through water. Her eyes weren't quite centered, her smile too wide. She touched my cheek. "I never fit in my life," she whispered, "but yours fits like skin." I tried to scream, but her voice came out of me. "You're on the wrong side," I heard again. The candles flickered. I ran for the door, but it slammed shut. My own hands held it closed, not mine anymore. Then darkness. When I woke, I couldn't move. I was cold, tight, wood against my back, satin under my fingertips, my knees pressed to my chest. I screamed, but it came out muffled. Dirt hit the lid above me. Shovelfuls, faster, harder. Each thud heavier than the last. I pounded until my hands bled. Splinters bit my knuckles. No one heard. Then through the tiny air slits, I heard her voice again. "Marin's dead," she said gently. "But I'm so glad May came back." The soil thundered louder, weight pressed down, stillness, then silence. The end. I didn't notice the missing room until the second shoot. The house was old, barnwood siding, handmade nails, a kind of lean that made every doorway feel suspiciously angled. But the owners had done their best, painted it white, slapped in new windows. Modern farmhouse, the listing called it. My job was simple: photograph, edit, deliver. In and out. Except I couldn't shake it. Something about the layout felt wrong. The hallway between the kitchen and den was too short. On the floor plan, there should have been another door. A storage closet, maybe. Or stairs. But when I looked, just wall. Seamless drywall, freshly painted. So I snapped a wide-angle shot of the hallway anyway for coverage. I always did more than they paid for. That night, reviewing photos at home, I paused on the hallway shot. There it was, a narrow door, right where I knew it hadn't been. I stared at it, brass knob, sliver of shadow beneath, like it had been opened, recently. I checked the next frame, same angle taken seconds later, no door. I zoomed in until the pixels bled. The frame before, door. Frame after, blank wall. I felt something shift in my stomach, not nausea, just tilt, like the floor leaned for half a second. I wrote it off. Glitch. Maybe I overlaid an old image by accident, Photoshop layers or something. Next morning, I taped a strip of blue painter's tape across the wall where the door had been. Just a test. The owners didn't like that. "Don't put things on the walls," the woman snapped, arms folded. "It's fresh paint." I apologized, explained the discrepancy. She stared at me like I was asking where they hid the bodies. "There's no basement," she said. "Never has been." I hadn't said basement. I said door. Later, I walked that same hallway. No tape, peeled off, clean, no residue, except for a faint dent where the knob had been. A half-circle smudge like someone turned it often. I pressed my hand to the wall. Cold. I whispered, "Basement." Something behind the drywall whispered back. Only breath. Nothing shaped, but something there. I left early. Back home, I pulled the memory card, dropped it into the laptop. The folder was labeled by date, as always, but beneath it, a new folder. Do not open again. Not a name I gave it. I hovered, then double-clicked. Hundreds of thumbnails, every one of me, sleeping, different angles, always overhead, lit by a single bulb, cracks in concrete above. Dust motes caught mid-float. The bed was mine, but the room wasn't. Bare walls, no door in sight, just a staircase in the background, leading up. I slammed the laptop shut. No way. I lived in a single-floor condo, no basement, no attic, just me, my bed, my camera. I turned the camera off, pulled the battery, left it on the counter and went to bed. I locked every door. In the dark, I stared at the ceiling and listened. Thump. Not from above, below. I didn't sleep. By the third shoot, I couldn't remember why I was there. I sat in the living room of the farmhouse, sun bleeding through the slatted blinds, and realized I hadn't scheduled this. No calendar invite, no contract, just arrived. The hallway was longer now, narrower. At the far end, no door, but something like a door. Wood grain in the wall itself, a faint rectangle pressed into the drywall, breathing gently. I blinked. It was gone. I took photos, not of the room, of myself, just to check. 10 frames, normal. Then frame 11, me, holding the camera but looking away, toward the far wall, mouth open, staring. like I remembered something just before it vanished. I felt behind my ear, damp. My fingertips came back with dust, concrete dust. I didn't go downstairs. There was no downstairs. I drove home fast, too fast. Ran a red light and didn't care. I opened the laptop again. The folder was gone. In its place, a new one. Welcome home. Inside, one photo, me smiling, unshaven, eyes glassy, standing at the top of a staircase, holding a door open, bare bulb behind me, captioned, "Down you go." I called the client, no answer. I searched the number online, no records. The realty site I pulled the job from? Gone. Domain expired. My invoice bounced. I couldn't remember what they looked like. The couple, owners, sellers. I couldn't picture their faces. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You left it open. Then, a photo of my condo's hallway, but longer, darker. At the end, a door, not one I recognized. I checked the hall, just drywall. I pressed my ear to it. Footsteps, slow, bare, approaching. I backed away, left my place, drove, slept in the car, engine running. No dreams. Next morning, I checked the camera again. New photos, from inside the farmhouse. Photos I hadn't taken. One of the hallway. The door was open. Stairs beyond. One step, two. Endless black. The last photo was a selfie. Halfway down the steps, grinning. I dropped the camera, left it on the pavement. It was already unlocked when I got there. No key, no knock, just the house waiting. Inside, the light flickered. I walked to the hallway. Nothing, no door. I turned back. Now it was there. Open, stairs beckoning. I blinked, and I was halfway down. Didn't remember walking, just the bare bulb swinging and the cold breath of the deep. I didn't scream, not because I wasn't afraid, because I'd forgotten how. The door shut behind me, soft click, the stairs disappeared upward, and the dark smiled back. The end. No one sat in the third row. That was the first thing I noticed on my first day at Aerodynamics. I was just a temp, back office filing, orientation support, lunch errands. But I noticed things, details. The auditorium had 5 rows, each one assigned by department, HR, marketing, ops, finance, temp staff. But third row, always empty. At first I figured it was accidental, people avoiding the middle. Then I noticed how deliberate it was. Assigned seats always skipped it. Even if the others were full, they'd stack 10 people into row 2 before touching 3. I asked Leanne, the office coordinator, the kind of woman who could staple your fingers and say oops with a smile. So why's no one ever in third row? She didn't look up. Cameras can't track them properly. I laughed. She didn't. It's not a joke, she added, eyes still on her spreadsheet. Ask IT. I didn't. Not then. 2 weeks in, I started working with onboarding media, clipping daily training reels, uploading attendance scans. Harrow had a policy. Every orientation session was filmed from 3 angles. AI verified headcount, behavioral analytics. But third row, blur, static. I pulled footage from the previous week, rewind, pause, every other row clear as glass. But third, faces glitching. Some frames showed 4 people, some 5, one had none at all, and one frame had a 6th. Middle seat, black suit, no badge. Looking right into the lens, the frame glitched again and he was gone. I leaned back. The lights in the editing bay flickered once, just once. I checked the attendance log. 4 new hires, 4 seated rows, the 5th person in the frame didn't exist. That night I got a text. Blocked number, no preview, just a video file, row 3.move. I opened it, was me, at my desk. Time stamped 2 hours ago, shot from above like from the ceiling. But I checked the tiles next morning. No camera. None. I went to IT, asked if someone was messing with the archives. You shouldn't be in there, the tech said. Pale guy, trembly hands. I showed him the video. He watched once. Then again, then he wiped his phone. You never got this, he whispered. Third row is not for staff. But what is it? He didn't blink. Selection. Then he left. No warning. Didn't return to his station. HR said he quit. I checked his file. Status absorbed. I kept telling myself it was corporate cult crap, office paranoia, fluorescent madness. Until I was late. That Monday, orientation started at 8:30. I rolled in at 8:31. Every seat filled, except third row. Leanne pointed. Clock's ticking, Kendra. So I sat. Third row, middle seat. The cushion was still warm, but no one had been there. The moment I sat, my phone buzzed. New email. From row 3 at harrow.sys, subject welcome back. I opened it. No body, just an attachment. Homeview1.mp4, I watched it. My apartment. From the kitchen corner. It showed me brushing my teeth. In a tank top I hadn't worn since college. I hadn't seen a camera. I hadn't installed a camera. Then another buzz. Same sender. HomeView 2.mp4. Me. Sleeping. But in a different bed. Older. Thinner mattress. Gray sheets I didn't own. A bulb swung overhead just out of frame. Behind me, someone watching. I closed the laptop, stood, but the session was still happening. I was still sitting. I blinked. I was back in the third row. Middle seat. Hands folded, my own nails dug into my thighs. After the session, I checked my bag. A second badge. Aerodynamics. Name Marla Trask, Division Compliance, resigned May 2024. The photo? Me, but older. Tired, I dropped it, left the building. At home, I stripped the walls, pulled apart the vents, checked for bugs. Nothing. But the light in the hallway flickered every time I tried to delete the footage. I tried quitting, sent the email. Formal, clean, auto-response. Request denied. See you tomorrow. I didn't go. They showed up instead. 2 men in suits, no names, no badges. You left an item in row 3, one said. I didn't answer. They smiled, perfectly synchronized. You've been selected, Kendra. For what? They didn't say. Just handed me a tablet. No brand, no ports, on-screen a loop, orientation footage. The third row, over and over, each time a different me, different clothes, slightly off, hair longer, older, sometimes not blinking. One waved at the camera. I threw the tablet across the room. It cracked, but it kept playing. The next morning, I woke up in bed. Not my bed. Gray sheets, thin mattress, bare bulb overhead, and footsteps above me. Orientation starts in 5 minutes, and I'm already in my seat. Third row, the end. They told me not to pack anything. Just bring your palette, the email said. The Eden Fork Collective had no website, no listed address, no phone, just a referral from a chef I trusted and a cryptic invite to Document Nourishment Reborn. It was too weird to say no. They picked me up in a self-driving van with blacked-out windows. 3 hours of forest and silence. When the door opened again, we were somewhere outside signal range. Tall fences, fragrant trees, and a complex of domed greenhouses glinting in the dusk. They greeted me with warm tea that smelled like soil and citrus. This detoxes memory, said the woman in linen. Let the body lead now. I didn't drink it. Not right away. Dinner was at 7. We sat in a glass-walled chamber. 30 of us, all new arrivals. Long tables. Everything set with surgical precision. Identical plates, portions, utensils aligned to millimeter symmetry. The food was transcendent. Grilled stone fruit with fermented fungi. Shaved root curl atop custard of regrown milk. No one spoke, not a whisper. Every bite hit like déjà vu, like I'd eaten it before in a dream and finally remembered how it was supposed to taste. When I tried to speak, the man beside me touched my wrist. He didn't shake his head, just looked, and I stopped. Afterward, I asked about the menu, the origins, techniques. The guide smiled. You'll learn in time. But no one answered the how. I blogged the first night. Called it the purest plate I've ever touched. That was before the cramps. They started after dinner 3. My insides twisted like wire. I collapsed in the compost hall. Blood came up, thick and black. The commune doctor, smiling pale, rubbed my back gently as I dry heaved into a basin of wheatgrass. Don't worry, she whispered. It's just your body accepting itself. They wouldn't let me leave. Sensitivity window, they said. Going now could undo the nourishment. I nodded like I believed them, but I started hiding food in napkins, sneaking leftovers into baggies. On day 5, I found the old barn where they stored deliveries. I stuffed a sample kit into my coat, swiped fragments, meat cubes, broth residue, shavings of blue-gold protein paste, shipped it overnight to a friend in the city lab. I lied on the form, said it was wild game. Then I waited. Day 6, the tea changed, bitterer. Left a film on the tongue. Everyone drank. Simultaneous sips. I held mine, pretended. That night, I found hair in my stew. Fine, black, curled like mine. I checked my arms, none missing, but the root bulb was still attached. My phone pinged at 3:14 a.m. Lab results. Every sample contained human DNA. Different profiles, pooled tissue from multiple donors. One dish, partial match to my own genome. I dropped the phone, threw up into the sink. Blood again. I confronted the chef. He didn't deny it. You are what you eat, he said softly, and soon you'll be whole. What is this place? I snapped. He blinked slowly. You weren't invited, Nico. He handed me a file, faded paper, stamped with a red E. It was a birth record, not from a hospital, from a nutritive development vat. Mother, father designation Arana 7. You were grown, Nico. I backed away. We never reached out, he said. You came home by instinct. I ran. Into the orchard. Through rows of trees humming low like breathing, lights danced behind branches. I kept going until the air felt wrong. Then I saw it. A mirrored building, reflective panels on every surface. Inside 30 seats, 30 plates, and 30 versions of me. Same face, different eyes, some older, some smiling too wide. They looked up, all at once, and the door shut behind me. The next course was served. The end. The car died 50 miles past the last cell tower. No warning lights, no sputter, just dead, like something had turned it off from above. I stood in the heat, dry wind, no shade, and then I saw it, maybe a mile off the road, tucked behind sandstone bluffs. A gas station, motel, maybe 6 buildings total. No name on the sign, just food, lodging, fuel, painted in flaking red. The first person I met was the motel clerk, mid-50s, smile like Velcro. Room's 20, he said, already handing me a key. I didn't say I was staying. He nodded, like that didn't matter. The room smelled like old curtains and dusted lemons. But the AC worked, and there was a rotary phone bolted to the wall. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no problem. I'd leave first thing in the morning, but morning never came properly, just a dull gray that passed for daylight. The diner across from the station was open. The waitress poured me coffee before I sat. You headed east or west? She asked. I shrugged. Neither. Just waiting for a tow. She tilted her head. There's no service out here. When I asked where here was, she said Osprey Hollow. That wasn't on any map. I checked, downloaded, printed, nothing. I asked when she moved here. She frowned. Always been here. Every map in town told a different story. One in the motel lobby showed the town in a pine forest. Another, same place name, was nestled by a lake. The road signs didn't match any interstate. I mailed 3 postcards, different cities, same message. I'm stuck, please help. None arrived. Day 3, I tried to leave. Took the west road, counting turns. 2 hours later, I passed the gas station again. Same dust on the pump, same fly buzzing inside the payphone. I drove the east road, same thing. Back again. A patrol car passed me on the 3rd loop. I flagged him down. He rolled his window an inch. There's no town here, he said. Hasn't been in 40 years. But He drove off. No plates. I returned to the motel. The clerk was still behind the desk. Same shirt, same smile. You didn't leave, he said. I checked the office. There was a scrapbook on the shelf. Photos inside. Old snapshots. Some black and white. Some Polaroids. All labeled guests who left. But the faces were faded, like heat had bleached them out. The last page had a new photo. Mine. Fresh. Sharp. I didn't remember posing for it. I tore it out. Burned it with a match from the drawer. The next morning, it was back. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. The sky never got dark enough to count stars. Every phone call glitched into static. Every road led home. Then my email bounced. My username not found. My Instagram deleted. No recovery possible. My mom's number said disconnected. I found a mirror in the diner bathroom. Wrote I exist in lipstick. It melted. The scrapbook now had 2 photos of me. Different days. Same clothes. I screamed, pounded the counter, demanded someone explain. The waitress just looked sad. Don't fight it, she said. Forgetting hurts less than remembering. The motel clerk handed me a new key. Room 9. There was no room 9 before. Inside, my things, arranged like I'd lived there for years. On the bed, a printed page. Last updated profile deleted. I walked to the edge of town. No road, just sand. No horizon, just fog. And behind me the gas station blinked its old red sign, welcome back. The end. She was already on the couch when I came downstairs, TV volume low. My daughter asleep upstairs, a teenage girl maybe 16, hoodie zipped up to her chin, cradling the baby monitor like it belonged to her. Hey, I said. She looked up, smiled like we were old friends. Everything's fine, she said. You told me to let myself in. I hadn't called anyone. It was 2:08 a.m. I checked the baby monitor. Lucy slept like stone, her little fists curled beside her cheeks. The girl turned back to the TV. I stepped into the kitchen, heart crawling. No text messages, no recent calls, no reminders. But in my contacts, Babysitter M. I didn't remember saving it, but the number was there, local. I scrolled back. Nothing. "Who are you?" I asked. She muted the TV. "Melissa," she said gently. "You hired me 3 days ago, said you needed help sleeping." I reached for the house key rack, one extra, plain silver, didn't match my set. "You had a key." She nodded. It was in the envelope on the fridge. I opened the envelope marked emergency cash. Inside, bills, and that key. Had I put it there? She stood, moved with practiced quiet, touched Lucy's formula bottle on the counter. 4 ounces at 2, 2.5 more at 5. No dairy. You said it made her gassy. I hadn't told anyone that. No one outside the pediatrician. "Leave," I said. She blinked, but nodded. I walked her to the door, locked it behind her. Then I checked the security footage. Front camera, timestamp 1:54 a.m. She walked up calmly, used the silver key, stepped inside. I was asleep on the couch, never moved. Later, I scrolled deeper into my phone, past alarms, past photos. There was a note file, opened at 1:50 a.m. Title, "Don't Panic." Inside in my voice, "She's here for your protection. Do not resist. You asked for this." I hadn't written that. Had I? The next morning I tried to report her. The 911 app opened, then blinked off. In its place, a note, "Too soon." I checked on Lucy. Safe, warm, giggle in her sleep. But she held something. A small crocheted doll I didn't recognize. Pink yarn, worn threads. I found the girl again that night, in the nursery. Rocking chair creaking gently. Lucy cradled in her arms. The light cast shadows across the wall. Only one, hers. No shadow from Lucy. No second silhouette, just her. I reached for the light switch. Everything flickered. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in bed. 3:32 a.m., Lucy asleep. Monitor glowing green. I ran to the nursery. Empty. Chair still rocking. The next day I searched old storage boxes, baby things, old frames, pre-fire. I found a photo album my wife had made, labeled Beginnings. On the 3rd page, tucked behind a hospital bracelet, an old Polaroid. My wife, holding a newborn, and a girl, maybe 6, standing beside her, same face, same eyes, captioned, "Our first child." I don't remember her, but the key still works, and she still watches the baby sleep. The end. And that's the end. But the night is far from over. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Tell me, are you still awake? Or did the whispers follow you into your dreams? If sleep won't come just yet, there are plenty more stories waiting for you. Go on, pick another. I'll be here.